Hello and welcome back to Metropole Grid. My name is Andre. How's it going tonight? Today is probably a questionable day to be streaming to some extent. It is November 24th, 2022, year of our Lord, and it is currently American Thanksgiving. There's a lot of people who probably asleep right now. I think that's how Thanksgiving goes in America. It's not that different than Canada, except we don't do football. Yo, you singing? How's it going? Parallel, Alec, how's it going? Evening, friends, y'all. It's a real quiet night tonight online. I'm expecting most of Canada. America's doing a thing right now. It's okay. We can kind of talk privately behind their back, which is a nice treat. Kind of what happens when you stream at a time that doesn't make sense for Europe. On that note, good evening from Sheffield. Hey, Bahram, how's it going? Good evening. Solmir, I said hi, didn't I? Pretty sure I did. Hope they all doing well. It's a week in Netrunner. Before I think a busier week in Netrunner. We haven't had any exact dates said, yes. So I'm not too sure what I can say or what I can't say. But spoiler season starts really, really soon. All I'll say is I have to record a video this weekend. That's all I can say. I think you'll maybe hear some news tomorrow. Who knows? UK Nats this weekend. Yeah, it's exactly this weekend is the UK Nationals. I guess Bahram, that's why you're in Sheffield, huh? I don't actually know where you're originally from. I shouldn't I? Yeah, it's the UK Nats. It's gonna be a big deal. It's actually gonna be streamed too. I don't know where it's gonna be streamed, but the UK Nationals will be on a stream. J-Dang is streaming it from my understanding. I don't know. Hopefully we'll get a link to that. Maybe someone will know and we'll post a link in the description because there's gonna be some like real big premiere, the last big Midnight Sun tournament in Netrunner this weekend, which is really, really exciting. Hey Gunny, wait, what are we doing? What are we doing? You tell me. How's it going? Right now, we're just talking. We're going to play the deck list of the week, and then from there, we're going to judge it. We have some things to talk about. There's a cool article that Jeff put up today that I think is worth talking about. But if it's as sleepy as it is right now, and it is a bit sleepy, we might just like kind of shoot the shit and maybe we'll just do all the MNeMiC review series. I kind of wanted to get to that. I thought I'd stream tomorrow to do it, but unfortunately something came up. Why can't I open my tabs? Okay, this is the thing. Right now in JNet, there's 6 games. Like, again, it is American Thanksgiving, so a lot of folks are with their families or have passed out because of whatever that thing is that's in Turkey. Yeah. Yep, getting hype. Yo, Bahram, you know what you're playing? How many people are coming out? Like, I've talked to people who are coming from, from America to going to Sheffield in the UK for UK Nationals. You said the Americans are doing a thing? Oh, I see. Excuse me. There's a delay. Happy Thanksgiving, I reckon. It's been tricky to get games the last few days. Tonight will be rough. I'll go grab it. Thank you. Yeah, tonight's going to be a bit rough, so we might do some non-gameplay stuff today. Apologies if that's not exciting. We haven't had a gameplay video up on the channel for a while, but this last weekend we did. It just wasn't here. We did a stream last weekend. We talked about it. You can find it on the Null Signal Netrunner Twitch channel. I would actually recommend it. It's pretty fun. It's a very small tournament. But we did Eternal this weekend. It was me and Onion on the mic. 426 people watch this. That's actually pretty good, I reckon. Hopefully this ends up its way onto YouTube sooner than later. But it's just like 3 hours, 3 rounds of Eternal, and it's quite fun. And I think, or at least I hope, that we made it approachable. So if you don't know Eternal, which is the whole card pool of Netrunner, you can still kind of pay attention, and it makes sense. We do highlight the cards that you don't know. It was really fun. It was really, really quite good. Now's your chance to make Eternal the most popular format on JNet. This is our chance that we could do anything. We can make Snapshot the most popular tournament on Netrunner, on Jinteki.net, excuse me. We just need two games. You'll be doing commentary once I wake up. Oh, sick. Yusengrin, are you doing both days? I unfortunately could not do commentary this weekend. I have some other stuff that I have to do. But I'm really excited that like the way that they're doing commentary from the UK, what's it called? The UK Nationals, is that they're going to like remote people in. So like if Jeff is doing commentary, he's not in Sheffield. He's going to be where Jeff is, which is really cool. I think a lot of cool work is going to it. Floofy, how degenerate is Eternal? It is nowhere near as degenerate as I think I thought it was, and maybe you think it was, right? Like, we're not seeing 3-turn combo decks. At that tournament, we saw mostly industrial genomics. Well, not mostly, but it was like the preeminent, the most popular identity. But we saw like no CI combo. A lot of the decks are like teched out to deal with stuff, but the games are actually like really exciting and meaningful. It's not like, oh, you're out on turn 2 because you didn't play a niche tech card. It was actually like quite enjoyable Netrunner, and it made me more excited for Eternal. So I don't think it was that bad at all. The field is wild. Whoa, 95 players, the UK Nationals. And yeah, the king is currently here with me in my Airbnb, repping Canada. Oh, heck yeah. Yo, good luck, y'all, on starts Saturday, right? You're playing Jemison and Freedom tomorrow for President of Servers. That's a funny name for that event. Ewan, you're there too. Hey, greetings from Sheffield. Yo, awesome. I'm so stoked that there's a lot of folks who are, in Sheffield this weekend. Saturday I'll be tuning in. Probably just Saturday. I think the plan is Sunday to have locals do it. Okay, cool. Hey Cactus, good evening. How's it going? Yeah, I'm excited to watch that stream on Saturday as much as I can. Again, I have to record a video this weekend because we have spoilers coming up pretty soon. I think I might be one of the soonest spoilers for community season. Like I might be the first community spoiler. I don't know. It kind of is what it looks like. But yeah, we're gonna have stuff on this channel soon enough. On that note, I guess I'm gonna say that, but if you're watching this, you probably don't know. And this is just a thing that's bothering me. I don't know how big of a problem it actually is. On the YouTube channel, live streams now have their own category. So if you roll up to the Metropole Grid looking for the latest stream and you're like, what, he hasn't done anything in a while, it's now here under live. Good luck, everyone. Is this scoop season starting next week? Bailing Grape, how's it going? I cannot officially say. I think you're going to see an article from Null Signal pretty soon, but they said like scoop season will start late November, and next week is the last week of November. The release is like in 2 weeks, I think. So it's going to be soon. It's going to be really soon, right? So we'll see. I'm really happy your spoilers are sooner rather than later. Yeah, Dan, I saw the list and like I know what cards I have, and I was like, I don't want to sit on these for a while. I kind of did. I honestly signed up for a slot, not knowing it was going to be the first slot. I generally wanted to, like, the way that I look at scoops is I want to drop my scoops a day before the stream, not on the same day as the stream, because it gets awkward in terms of like finding it, because then it buries it. So I want to do it like the day before, so there's something to talk about and like a call to action, and we can like talk about it the next day or whatever. And then I signed up, and then I realized like the scoops window is like really small because the set's out in 2 weeks. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm gonna do. I just didn't realize how like I front loaded it, which is good. That's really good. I'm excited. It's really cool cards. I think there's gonna be a lot to talk about, that's for sure. Oh, how's everyone else doing? It's weird. It's a quiet day today because like new sets coming out. People are maybe a bit tired of things. This is a deck list of the week. This is Axwell, right? My other car is Porsche. There's 4 players at Worlds who are playing Tag Me Zahya. 2 of them made it to the top cut and made it to day 2 and made it really far in the tournament. Other 2 did also pretty well. Huge shout outs. And so this is really cool because all the decks are like very, very similar that were at Worlds, barring like 1 or 2 cards. And Axwell does a nice write up there and they speak about like what cards they would change. And I agree with some of the changes for sure. Whether you need that slipstream tech, who knows? What's the card type of your favorite card in Parhelion? Out of what I've seen out of my spoilers? Dang. Hold on, let me think. Hold on, this shouldn't be this hard. I'm not answering your question. I'm just thinking. I have multiple card types. I do not have one type of card. Wow, cryptic nonsense. I'm not gonna say because I don't know what I'm allowed to say or not allowed to say. But my favorite card's probably not the card it should obviously be out of what I have. So that's good fun. Dan B says program for me. I guess we can say it. I think upgrade. I think upgrade is like the most interesting thing. But probably operation is going to be like the most interesting thing. Let's just say that. I'll be running all scoop cards at PAX Unplugged for gunslinging too. Heck yeah. So that's on the news bracket. PAX Unplugged is like next week, right? PAX Unplugged starts December 2nd. It's December next week. That's kind of fun. So yeah, check that out. That's in, I'm going to say Pennsylvania because I know that should get there also. What's the cost and text on the card? What can I spoil? I'm gonna do like minor spoilers, and if Null Signal's upset at me, they can tell me either now while I pause for stream delay. I think all the cards I have are really high influence. I'll say that. Like I don't have any like little cards. I don't have any like, oh, you slipped that in maybe into a deck cards. I have like, I see you brought cards to this game. Yeah. Yeah, I think they're all very high influence. No, okay. I think majority of them are high influence. So you're going to have like very interesting things. My favorite card has Liga art on it. That's a good scoop. That's a really good scoop. Yeah, no, that's a good scoop. My cards have the expected artists on them, which is, yeah, okay. Cool. You want to play Tag Me? You want to see how long it takes us to queue into an NBN matchup? This is the Tag Me archetype. We've talked about this on the channel before, but it's an archetype that generally only exists in Standard currently, in which you are a runner who wants to go to the way to take tags because you have cards that benefit off of having tags. Firstly, you have counter surveillance. This is probably firstly and lastly, you have counter surveillance, and not that there isn't other cards, but this is your win condition. With this one, you're gonna go run R&D, run HQ sometimes. I think people do forget running HQ with this thing is sometimes the correct play. Actually, more often than it looks. And then you get to access as many cards as you have tags, as long as you can pay that exact cost as well, which is amazing. It's really good. So the idea is float tags, survive, and then do this. And survive, that's the hard part. There's a lot of hard tag punishment in the meta, mostly in the meta like 2 months ago. It's kind of falling off, at least on JNet Casual, so you don't have to worry about those Drago decks too often. But you just kind of lose to market forces. You just kind of lose to self-growth program. Nothing you can do about it. But you do survive against Boom, because again, the other big tag card is Obelisk, which gives us hand size equal to the amount of tags we have, plus hand size. And on top of that, we draw cards equal to the cards that we access. So the idea is that you can run Zahya, and you can just like, you know, jailbreak aggressively in the early to mid game, draw 3 cards off of this with Obelisk is sick. And then once you counter surveillance for like 9 cards, you draw 9, gain 9 because you're Zahya, which is really great. It's a good deck. I do think the Amakua can be dropped, and we can probably play a Sneak Door Beta, which works really, really quite well with Zahya's ability with Jailbreak to some extent, but Docklands Pass, that's the one you want with your HQ run off the Sneak Door Beta. And otherwise, you're in a pretty good spot. This is a good deck. It's a good deck against a meta that you're predicting. So if you're playing against sports metals, HBs, stuff like that, if you're playing against Shinoteki net damage is actually a reasonable matchup because you do have massive hand size. So core damage, you can kind of shrug off. You can take a whole bunch of burst damage without dying. And that's kind of fun. It's kind of hard sometimes to play counter surveillance, but if you have a big enough hand size, maybe you can just hit 2-3 snares and still steal an Obokata and you look like an absolute hero. Give it a shot. Well done, Axwell. Yo, Frisbee, how's it going? Welcome to the stream. Happy American Thanksgiving, or as they call it in America, Thanksgiving. It's gonna be a quiet night, which is great, because if you want to take up a lot of space in the chat and you want to make this about yourself, just step right up. Like, no, it's just gonna be you and I, and we'll have a good time. New runner. My other card is I don't know how to say this weird, and I feel like people have strong opinions on them, and I feel like some of the people that have strong opinions of them, like, I don't know if they're cool. So yeah, I'm just gonna say Porsche. Cool, let's go. AC Bass, how's it going? How's your Thursday night, Friday slash Friday morning? All right, 8 games, actually not that bad. A bit slow, some startup in there, some casual. Actually, I think a fair bit of startup, so we might struggle for a bit. We'll just do this, gotta hit that button, and then we're good to go. Syndrin, all right. If it's an NBN matchup, it's pretty hard. This can be disastrous. Hey, best of luck, have fun. So we're playing against NBN. This is, of course, Pravdavost. Now, half of the Pravdavost decks are actually not running any hard tag punishment outside of like predicted planogram. So you can kind of get away with floating a fair few tags. The issue is that they are playing like market forces, self-growth program, boom, all that sort of stuff. That's a bit harder. Self-growth program and mostly market forces is the harder stuff for us to interact with. But sometimes the Pravdavost decks are just running, you know, like NAPD Coordinate and all that sort of other stuff, which again, we interact with fine. It's okay. Opening hand, we have a jailbreak, so we can pressure both centrals. Again, running gives them this ability, so we don't want to run every turn for fun, just kind of when it matters. Otherwise, our hand, though, is kind of ugly. Do we have any boomerangs? I think we have boomerangs, right? Yeah, we have 2 boomerangs. But like landing an early hot pursuit is the best thing we can do. We'll just keep this. I'm excited to talk about Parhelion starting soon. I need to sign up. Sengrin, you sent the link for your the daily casts the other day, but I was on my phone and it was really not easy to open. But I'm gonna sign up for one of those because that's kind of looks really fun, especially if I can get my spoilers out early, so I don't sit there like a smug. Hey Chris, happy Thanksgiving. I ate too much turkey. How's it been? How was the turkey this year? All right, ice. So now if they advance this card, we get pretty good information about it. I'm gonna open with the Sure Gamble, just so that if we jailbreak in, we can steal Bologna a bit easier. We're gonna hit here, we'll draw a card and then get 2 more credits. The Corp can advance this card. It has to be an advanceable card. So it looks like this is not an advanceable card. There's the planogram. And there's a planogram. So we don't want to get tagged on turn 1. We want to wait. And I think a lot of times when you see Zahya on the other table, you understand it's a tag me deck, especially if we installed this card. So that's a bit rough. So we know this is not a Naket. It's not a Masfingo. It's not a Code Gate. So this is likely either, it's not specifically the, what's it called? The Mesnachestvo. So it's likely, I don't know, maybe just a Turnpike, maybe a Vasilisa. Icewall also sees play in these lists. Okay, we'll show that we're tag me. Can you wish good luck to Cobra Bubbles, who I think is watching in the other room? The guy's a hero who taught me everything I know. Cobra Bubbles, best luck. You got some really kind words from you, and you're doing good, whatever you're doing out there. Couldn't sell rogue trading now, hit it twice next turn. Yeah, it's a bit like, I'm not excited to do it. They did play one predicted planogram. So I think I'm going to hold out and hit this until we can do a whole turn of it. But I don't want to do it when they have a planogram in hand. I want to like face check into an ice and like hit a turnpike and then get it to maybe do that after. It's just, I think we can boomerang here. Did Cinder and Mull. They kept. So like we could go hot pursuit, boomerang there, but then we should hit this twice if we're going to hit it at all. Let's just set up one more time. Okay, so we have this turn. We could always do boomerang on here, diversion. That's nice. That might pressure them to do the predicted planogram. I'm going to do it. We're only weak here to ping, which it could be. But if it's ping, oh yeah, right. That also makes sense. People are playing this and it's really quite good. So we will boomerang it. It saves us nothing. We paid already money for it. And then we're going to break the rest. And we'll put them down to 0 credits. We unfortunately don't get our Zahya ability because that's based on cards we access, not on successful run. And now we know we really want that sneak door beta, which is great. This is a nice shirt, but I have to worry sometimes about like, this shirt is kind of the color of my lighting. And so it doesn't make a very interesting scene. I think I need to wear brighter colors all the time. Cinderen's on 0. Here, yeah, there. Now they play the planogram, we can hit this. And we haven't seen any other tag punishment, not that we've seen other cards. Server 4, we could go check that at the cost of rogue trading. What's our barrier breaker? Litter, how's it going? I think it is Marjana? No, we play paperclip. Okay, we actually are playing paperclip. So no matter what, we deal with that for the same. Cleaver deals with this better. And you do see criminal decks running Cleaver. What is server 1 here? I think it easily could be a Rashido. We don't want that. Maybe a Spin Doctor. I think a Spin Doctor or Rashida. Yeah, it's a Spin Doctor. We'll threaten that out a bit. And then next turn we can do the rogue trading. We want to hit a class act here. And now we can draw up. Unfortunately, it's a bit ugly next turn to rogue trading. So now that they've drawn with Spin Doctor and haven't filtered, they're also not advancing this card. Not that we make a successful run. We did the turn before, but when this pops, it's not a successful run. But now we can do Sneak Door and go for it. Sneak Door DECKLISTS. So we could run this. If it's an NGO front, they crack it. If it's anything else, like we have to kind of deal with it first, I think. It's probably an NGO front. If it's a Bologna, they can't score it unless we make a successful run. So if we install Sneak Door, Boomerang, and Run HQ, we gain 2 credits. Not amazing. I'm going to do it. That wasn't it. But I'm pretty sure that that's an NGO. Hard-hitting news in hand. Okay, so they're a tag me deck. That actually is an issue. And there's a Turnpike, another tagging ice. They've played regardless. We'll gain 2 here. If we Sneak Door, we only go for 1, but now we're getting hard-hitting news. At least if they do that, we're kind of okay with it. Turnpike's still good. Turnpike is still relevant for 2 credits. It's like not the worst dice. But yeah, now they might not hard-hitting news. So this got a 3rd advancement on it. I still think it's an NGO front. Maybe they could like score something meaningful here. It could also be a Drago. I'd be pretty surprised. I think here we draw for the filter draw. Class Act or Amina. Amina deals with Messna Chestfield not well. You play 7 after you're playing this for 7. At least we can get this down for free. But I think a second Class Act is probably better. We can discard the second copy of this unique card. Yeah, we're assuming it's an NGO front. Anything else would be like a pretty ridiculous play from our opponent, but sometimes that's the play that works, right? Like they could score. Yeah, they got NGO front. Now they can hard-hitting use us, which is fine. They didn't hard-hitting use us because they know we're going to do the work ourselves. And, you know, that tracks. So we have to watch out. Sometimes people do play just unironic Urticas, and that's great. That could be the Turnpike. I do think that we just rogue trading twice. There's a chance, like, as soon as they play a single market forces, it's kind of, yeah, the game's kind of over. I'm just going to do it. Let's just see how bad this is. Having an Obelisk would be good too. We could just die to Boom here. Oh, we just died to Boom here. Yeah, that's a risk. The Boom, probably a 2 in this list. I'm not expecting Boom in a lot of Pravdivos, but yeah, sometimes it happens. Cool. Tag me. Sometimes you have really bad matchups, and that is something that's like totally avoidable. The thing is, we'd have to get our Obelisk down. It's kind of tricky, right? So we need to get our Obelisk down. Good game, Alec. We have to get our, I keep forgetting that Cinderen's your handle. We have to get the Obelisk down. We have to get 2 tags and we have to draw 2 cards. So it's asking for a fair bit. It's possible, but like Boom is the one tag punishment we can play around. So, you know, that kind of feels bad. I didn't really expect Prob to be on a Boom. It's not the most obvious inclusion in this deck a lot of the times. Sometimes Prob the most decks, like people are pretty conservative and don't want to run against it aggressively. So like having Carting use Economic Warfare, maybe that's a surprise. But yeah, sometimes people play more cautiously against this. Maybe you can have your cake and eat it too. We can do another one. I wasn't expecting to Boom, honestly. I was more expecting to use Psychographics in the game. Yeah, Psychographics is really good. That's another one we can interact with. But I think on the list of like tag punishment, Psycho is the one we're least worried about because we can pressure economy to some extent. We can also lock the top of our ID. It's obviously hard. Yeah, we'll do another one. I can't believe you queued into me with your Boom deck. You was playing tag me. I bet. That happens. It's in my other car. Is a Porsche or my other card? It's car and I wrote card. Phenomenal. Phenomenal. That's good stuff. Yeah, I think our games today might be a bit slow. Maybe few and far between. I didn't tag the deck. I picked it for tag me. It was my CO deck. No, I'm joking. It's always what you feel when you play against. Like that is the beauty of playing, you know, a deck that can have a really polarizing matchup. Is that when you queue into Jinteki.casual, JNet casual, right? Like if your opponent has, you know, the answer to your deck, you can just scoop and walk away, and you don't feel bad, and you know your pride is still there. And if they don't, well, then you feel like an absolute hero when you like stomp through their mid-range HB or whatever it is you think you're tech for. Hey, Capoduino. Hey, good evening. Do you mind playing against Glacier Ag Infusion, or is it bad content? Felipe, is it bad content? It depends what it is. This deck has a really lousy matchup against it. It has a quite, let's try this. Yeah, of course. It has a really bad matchup into Ag Infusion because Ag Infusion, you cannot diversion of funds really easily. You can't, what's it called at all? You can't do your combo at all. You cannot counter surveillance because they just boop you. So it'd be pretty miserable. And it's actually quite a bad matchup. Best of luck, have fun. So there's a big chance that this is the deck list that was recently posted that Mendex won the Singapore Nationals with. And I've actually played this deck a bit earlier this week. This deck has tag punishment with 3 predicted planogram and then 1 copy psychographics. And I think I struggled with this deck. I don't actually fully understand this deck entirely. It's running AR enhanced security, which if they score that, it actually kind of helps us. But it has almost no money if they keep your assets down. And then if you go tag me, it's only a single psychographic. So it can be quite tricky. It can be quite tricky for this deck to pull out. Now our opening hand here, we have an inside job, which we don't really need early. Obelisk is quite good, especially we expect us just to go tag me, and Jailbreak is just cards and credit. It's really hard for Near Earth Hub to ice up both centrals. So like this is kind of the best thing we could do. Unfortunately, if we do like Obelisk into Jailbreak, at least after that we'll have, yeah, that's worth keeping, and we hope we just draw an economy card. Do they have Spin Doctor? Near Earth Hub? Probably. What do you mean, Floofy? So if this is the deck that I think it is, it's okay, so it's a totally different deck. Tiered subscription, daily quest. This is really risky. Yo, Acid Channel, how's it going? How's your Friday, I take it, right? So this is like really weird, this play, because this daily quest means we can run this to gain 2 credits. Yeah, they'll gain 1, but we're gonna run more than that. Maybe they have 4 psychographics. So I think here, did they mulligan? So they draw in the middle of their turn, right? So they mulligan. So we're going to start with a Jailbreak HQ, and then we're going to run this, run that, and then probably run that again. It's a toll booth. That's good to know. It's a loot box. Okay, so we don't really know what this is. CTM game? Not exactly. All right, so we can run this. The thing is that if we run this and even don't take money off of it, they don't get money. So we'll check this out. This probably is a Rashida or a Spin Doctor, maybe an AR enhanced. But we want to run this first if it's a Spin Doctor to make it a bit ugly before we trash other stuff. It's a bladder word. Okay. So we don't love to take damage here. Unfortunately for them, this won't actually do anything. So I think they're okay with that for this turn. We can run server 1 here, and we can go ahead and trash this. If now that we run, they don't get money off of it. We can also consider just like bouncing and running back. And I think that's actually kind of fine. I think that's fine. Like we can just run this for 2 credits every turn. Now what we need here is not exactly money. We could have considered Obelisking earlier in the turn and then played this. But now they could ice it up. They could ice it up with loot box. I guess we'll take it down. But in theory, we could have kept bouncing off of that because as long as we run it once, they don't get any money off of it. It's like not a card you want to not ice. All right, Bladderwort's up. New remote server. They draw a card. NEH, I'm still waking up. Don't worry. It's going to be a good Friday, I reckon. You posted a comment. You posted the comment about like, I was joking about something being bad content. And I don't know what you referred to, but I appreciated the defense. I'm feeling it. Okay, we're going to go Bravado HQ. We know one of these could be a toll booth. If it's a loot box, I don't think we mind so much. We're going to run anytime with a tiered subscription. But HQ generally, without a daily business show on the table, draws some sort of heat. So we're just going to go HQ here. If the run's successful or not, it doesn't have to be. Prison decks like this make me a Salset Slums. Salset Slums is not really a big deal. Like, recursion is much more limited than it was a while ago. So I don't even think you need Salset Slums that much. Right? Like, there's only 3 Spin Doctors. That's all the recursion they're playing. And Spin Doctor is not like Jackson. It only recurs a card. Do we take the Bologna? I think we do. Because we get all the money from it. So now we can check server 4, check server 2. We definitely want to get the Obelisk down. Here, we'll check server 4 first. Because if they can't res this is just a pad campaign. We do want to keep their money down. It's another Bladderwort. So we trash just all their stuff. I think they just don't have money. Unfortunately here, neither will we. But if they're hard-hitting news us, I think we're pretty happy with it. Yeah, this is hardly prison. Yeah, the best thing here is we trash 2 Bladderwort, but like this deck doesn't run hedge fund, it runs predict the planogram, but here we don't have to do anything. Now we can just set up. I think next turn we just Obelisk into Hot Pursuit. Because this is the only valuable card in our hand, and then if we're going to tag me, if we keep the class act, we just credit kiting it down. All right, we gotta check some more stuff. So we haven't seen Rashidas, we haven't seen Spin Doctors. We're assuming that they're on Sansan City Grid to some extent. But yeah, the daily quest that they res, right? Like, they lost 1, and we gained technically 3. Okay, I'm gonna do this. I just hope, right? This will fire. They get 2 credits, 1 off tiered, 1 off tithe. We're just hoping to lose the inside job, I guess. If we keep the inside job, we can always check server 5. Why didn't you trash the Bladderwort the first turn, but run it again to trash the next turn? Isn't it a waste to click or not to trash the first time? Yeah, to some extent. Like, if we had full information of what we're going to draw in later, maybe we could have trashed that. But then it makes it harder for us to do other stuff. Like, we needed the money. Oh, perfect. To do other things as well. I told me I want to trash the Bladderwort because then their deck has no economy. Like, I'm not worried about the net damage. I just want to keep the economy down. We could die to Snare here. Spin Doctor. Yeah, Felipe, if we want to trash it early, but then like we can't top deck Hedge Fund or Sure Gamble and play it. So there's some reasons not to. We're gonna draw a card after this. I don't know if we trash the Spin Doctor. For them, it's 3 card draw. Okay, Zahya. We have a counter. What's good tonight? Happy US Thanksgiving. Hey, Janktivist, hopefully you're having a good one. This could be Toll Booth. I think we can just check server 6 and then credit kiting down the class act. Slums is out around Rumor Mill. I think I prefer Rumor Mill. Yeah, but Rumor Mill is banned. That's a pad campaign. I think we can trash it after they res it. Oh, we only have no clicks left? Shit, I would have done that. Yeah. All right, it's a daily business show. And they've iced it up, which I'm feeling okay about that. But now we have to understand our HQ pressure is a bit more minimal. This deck is also not running Mad Dash, so we're actually going to have to steal agendas. But that's fine. We just have to watch out if they're running any other punishment. Usually it's planogram and psychic graphics. 17 influence goes pretty far, and we've seen they generally spend, you know, like 6 influence on these things. I feel like Bladderworts aren't a threat on board until they can threaten damage with it. Oh, right, you're Canadian. Evan, how's it going? Yes. They're generally not a threat on board. And now not running actually denies them more money than running, so we're just going to set up a bit. Draw. Okay, so we can hit that and gain 6 off of it. I think that's fair. I think we can just do that. Otherwise, we can get down the class act. That's actually probably better because we want to draw into more Hot Pursuits. So it's either this, take 6, and then they gain 8 and they can trash this. I think we're okay either way. We just try not to die to Boom. Now at least we can get to 7 hand size. So this is a bit risky because now we can die to Boom for this one specific small window. Otherwise, once we get our class act down, we should be on hand size and we're good. So we could die right here. Now they have to decide whether they want to trash this, and they should. They really should. A click and 2 credits, yeah. It's going to stop them from doing anything, and now this is the first thing that they're doing on the board that we have to consider worrying about. This deck doesn't have Miss Bones. So here, I honestly think you don't res this. Because resing this, like if it was unresed, we'd actually consider checking it and they would gain 2 credits. Now they're going to get 0 credits. So I think resing that might be actually incorrect. We get value draw if we don't draw with the class act. Before the class act, we're going to draw anyways. If the NEH is the winner, Singapore could win in a different way. I played that deck and it's not this one. Unless they change slight bits of it because it's not on Daily Quest. But the Singapore deck only has fast events and Psycho. How's it going, by the way, Daijin? All right. And then next turn we can DECKLISTS, go HQ. We're going to lose our counter surveillance maybe. But here, now we can't die to boom anymore. All right, they still have to figure out how to win the game, right? Like they're dripping only 1 a turn. As soon as we run, it's a bit of a different narrative. But if they want to go and score out, either naked on the table is possible. I like that. But if they want to like sand, it's going to be 8 credits. So it's a bit expensive. Tag and bag, it could be. It could be, at least here with this much hand size, we don't worry about it. But it's a lot of times MBN will like spend, you know, Bladderword influence and then either Biotic shows up. In theory, if it is tag, we could see, or maybe not, you could expect like mutually assured destruction. I think a lot of these 0 costers might work with mutually assured destruction. Going great. I really like the Lady Liberty. Oh, Lady Liberty 2 is in the list, but that only scores a 1-pointer. So I'm not worried about that one. And it scores a 1-pointer that actually makes us more powerful. All right, so if we run the game 3 credits, at some point we know that they have Toll Booth as ice, so there is a top end to their ice that actually is, you know, a problem. Here, I don't know what we can do. We can just draw up. Again, we have 8 hand size. We're going to install some stuff. We could just Bravado HQ. I guess we want to get the book altar down. Evie's here to bless your runs. Oh, thank you, Evie. I appreciate it. All right, we'll get that down because we don't want to lose it. And now we actually break the tithe for free. Let's just run HQ and force a res here. We're assuming R&D is actually like a loot box, I think. There's a toll booth. That's fine. So they gained 3 credits on this. Okay, so we've run. I think I'm going to go check server 9. It's another daily business show. I think they can have that. We're counter surveillance, so we're only slightly weak to it. But like our HQ pressure isn't there unless we get Sneak Door. Slums was my solution for those museum prison decks or the Sandberg decks. Rumor Mill is okay, but if Corp had their own current. Yeah, Slums is relevant when Museum was a thing. I think modernly, even if you could play Slums, I don't think you would. Unless you're doing like Aeneas Informant combo. They didn't res this one. Third heights on HQ, okay. We're gonna get our Sneak Door beta down soon. Or we're just gonna charge R&D. Now, unfortunately, if we run, they gain 3 credits. Like 3-tier subscriptions will do that. Oh, no worries. So it looks like they didn't want that. That makes sense. I think 3 ice on HQ is a bit much. They need to figure out what their scoring remote is going to be. And generally, if like they have to protect a Sand, we have Sand credits, but they're going to have to ice it up. But now we're on like get tags plan. So if they only have 3 credits, so we don't run, we can install Rogue Trading. Undo turn. Oh, you can. Oh, whole turn. Can you just undo? Oh, because it was 2 clicks. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so we both had to do that. I thought they were just undoing a click, but they clicked for credit. It's a bit ugly because it lets them daily business show in theory again. Yeah, but they're going to do the same thing regardless. Okay, so ice on HQ, or R&D, excuse me, that tracks. They're still on 3 credits. Now they're on 4 credits. So we can install this and take money off of it. It's hard for us to protect this for more than a turn. So at least we'll, you know, deny them credits. If we don't run, they're not getting value. So what's our turn? Install hit. So we can draw once. So it's either a jailbreak or a diversion. We boomerang the toll booth. The diversion's not so good because it's largely canceled out by the 3-tiered subscription. So we'll keep the jailbreak. Discard paperclip. Oh no, we got a tag from that, right? Hey Bilby, how's it going? Tag me size so fun. Yeah, it is really quite fun until you play into a Market Forces deck. But yeah, no, it largely is quite fun. How's it going? Can I dare you with Null? Otherwise, what do you think is the better format between internal and startup? It depends what you want to do, Daojin. Firstly, Null, I'd be hard pressed, but maybe. Between Eternal and Startup, I think it depends what you want as a better format, right? Like better is not, I don't know what better exactly means. If you want something that's approachable for newer players, Eternal, 100%. It's like 24 cards or whatever. I think if you want to go the opposite direction and you want to have like a diversity, and there's actually even a chance that Eternal has less diversity than some formats just because the cream of the crop is much higher than everything else because things are accelerated. I think Eternal is a more exciting and more powerful format. I don't think that's a surprise for anybody, but I actually quite enjoy Eternal more than I thought I would. I'm excited for the new spoilers that are just around the corner. Yo, it's like as early as next week from everyone's understanding. I got to record my spoilers video this weekend. All right, daily quest. So if we run it, they gain 3. If we don't run it, they gain 3. Huh. They didn't trash a rogue trading? Get out. They didn't trash a rogue trading. Well, I'll trade you 3 credits for 12. I think I'll do that. Totally forgot about new spoilers. That's so hype. The set comes out on like the second week of December or whatever. So like, it's got to be soon. I'm pretty sure Null Signal is going to post an article tomorrow. I'd be surprised if they didn't, considering like we're basically 2 weeks away from launch. But yeah, we got pretty good cards. We got set defining cards, I think, from our spoilers. So tune in. That should be on the channel, as most of our videos are. So ready for Boom 2? Yeah, Electric Boogaloo Boom 2. It is an interesting thing though, right? Like that was the thing I've been saying before, is mutually assured destruction is like one of the weird question marks that exists in startup with like no Wayland support. So whether there's Boom 2 or not, yeah, with a vengeance. Yeah, we'll see. All right, so this daily business show in server 9 still hasn't been rezzed yet. We have 5 tags, so they can't just fast events out. Like we have to put on some amount of HQ pressure. We do have one, what's it called, sneak door in the deck. I think the deck could be running 2, because they could just like psychographics out here. And that's the only issues. They can psychographics out only a 3-point Beal. If we're on 6 tags, they could do a 4-point Beal. But that's the one way that we could lose from the sports state. It's Psycho Beal. Well, just Psycho anything would be fine. Like Psycho Bologna is fine. Just click for 3 credits. Okay. All right. I want to run R&D. Mutually Assured Destruction is a weird card. I'm sure it'll be busted one day. How's it going, Orbital? So what can end our run here? Code gates. End of list. Lucky Charm. I don't know if we're running HQ anytime soon. But they seem to just be wanting to get money. So I think they do have like a psychographics or something in hand. Problem is like we don't deal with Toll Booth well unless we have Boomerang or Snake Door Beta. Unfortunately, all we have is Sure Gambles. I want to draw once again because I want to throw out the paperclip. Second Obelisk, I want to throw out the paperclip. Okay. What a turn. Happy US Thanksgiving. Yeah. Happy US Thanksgiving, America. Hopefully y'all enjoying the holiday. Second DBS is up. They haven't shuffled their deck in a minute. Psycho Beal could be happening this turn. Again, we only have 5 tags. We didn't gain any tags this turn. We do want to go out our way to gain tags soon enough because we're going to need enough tags to do our thing. Third ice on R&D. Okay, so they're playing around counter surveillance. That tracks. Hey, Mayor, how's it going? Mayor Splitsville. What corp should I play a PAX Unplugged, chat? You're asking chat. I'm interested to see what they say. Is PAX Apex One More Time? Apex One More Time is good. There's actually a deck list that was posted recently that had some sort of tournament results. All right. Dipped away for a bit. Eternal's great. I think more diverse than startup, but I'm less comfortable calling it better because it has different goals. Yeah, it has very different goals. I think that's for sure. All right, so do we have a Docklands Pass? We do Docklands Pass, Boomerang, and then we don't have a Hot Pursuit. We do Surveillance Time. Oh, nah. 5 tags. I need more. We just need to snipe what's it called from HQ. So we're gonna go pass, Boomerang, and then we're gonna run HQ. So this will draw 2 cards, access 2. Keep the mutual to get your Amina. Yeah, I think so. We kind of want like Amina breaking Toll Booth is still quite expensive. We're gonna need our Amina for sure if we're running R&D. This is free. Yeah, the problem is if we draw the Mina, like we can credit kiting it down, which is, you know, kind of nice. But we can probably afford it. I'm just, yeah, we're worried about like, I guess white space, not exactly, but you know, Enigma Magnet is something that shows up a fair bit. Jemison would pair nicely with Apex. Yeah, we haven't played Jemison in a while. Jemison is actually quite fun. All right, we see 2 cards. Psycho. Okay, that's exactly what we're expecting. So we have to put HQ pressure. And there's the Beal. One usually follows the other. So they were going greedy. It looks like they wanted to wait out for their like big Beal combo, but now we can counter surveillance for like Bubkiss and probably still win. So do we want to shuffle back the Boomerang first? I do think we want to shuffle the Boomerang before we draw, because if we draw the Boomerang, we're actually quite happy with it. And then we do have it. So next turn we do the same thing. We flush HQ. Now at this point, they might not have that many agendas. Daily business show. 2 of them. So we have an Amina 1 in 16. We don't have a slipstream. We have a Amina 1 in 16. We have a Sneak Door 1 in 16. And we can just flush HQ here. I do think we want to check server 11 though, because I think they're going to at this point start just jamming on the table because they know we're not checking. Counter surveillance. Yeah, we can counter surveillance for 6. It's still pretty good. Double code gate here, like double toll booth would be a bit rough, but like what can they do with infinite money? It's mostly psychographics. So I think we check server 11. Draw last click. Okay. We'll draw once. Sneak door or hot pursuit's good. Docklands is definitely not necessary. We'll check server 11. It could easily be a pad campaign or spin doctor. We do want to deal with those. Drawing last live practice. Yeah, no, it's not the best thing to do. It's good that you call yourself out. Yeah, it's a spin doctor. Okay. We just wanted to force that to shuffle. Now, when we run HQ, this is a bit ugly because they get the double daily business show. But now they shuffle. So running R&D is a bit better because if they bottomed agendas in the early to mid game, we're back. Who are we all seeing in PAX? I cannot make it to PAX this year. I do want to do it at some point. It's on the bucket list. I think we can just run R&D here for one. Like, we've already ran. I don't know what we're worried about. Like, if it's a code gate, I don't know what code gate we could hit that could be, like, terrible. Night Dancer. Okay, that's fine. That's totally fine. We've scouted the area. We've appropriately found where the second toll booth is. We have a click left. If we draw, we discard one. That's probably fine. We do need to get through our deck. There's the Mina. Okay, so we can get the Mina down pretty easily, and then we break toll booth for again. 7. It's rough. I've been at PAX U every year. It's always been a cool con. I've said this before. I've been to one PAX West. I was working, but you get time off to do your own thing. And like PAX West is a really good convention. I haven't been to too many. I've been to Origins board game thing. It's really great. Been to E3 multiple times, but that's more for like, I think media. I think E3 has like an event for the general population. It's a terrible event. PAX is the only event we get in Australia worth going to. Oh yeah, there is an Australia PAX. Next turn archives cutting Amina CSGO. I think so. I think we might have to Janktivist. We might have to like wait a turn because we probably have to afford to double sure gamble. Because there's a chance if there's another toll booth there, I don't know if we connect with enough money. But yeah, we could run archives, credit cutting Amina. See it. I think we wait a turn. I think we do sure gamble because there's a big chance there's an IP block there, and that's 7 more credits, right? Oh, it is a mad deck. I love it. All right, they're gonna accelerate their tags here, so they're gonna rip up their board. This is like the startup deck we've been playing, which is really, really fun. This is my first PAX to you since I joined Null Signal. I'm really excited to help out with running stuff. Sanjay, I think you said something before and I didn't read it. Oh, it's next weekend. It's quite soon. Hey, Sanjay, hope you're doing well. All right, what are you doing on behalf of Null Signal? Are you showing games off? They got it. They don't have anything with this. They just are going to give us way more tags. They're going to accelerate our mutually assured. So now we have to CSHQ. Yeah, we have to CSHQ to flesh out, what's it called? Beal. This is where the power of CSing HQ is, right? Because if the Beal's in there, now they could top deck a Beal and then we'd lose, but we know they have psychographics. I'm so excited for PAX to you. You gotta take it to the next level, Sanjay. Hey dear, how's it going? Now we got enough. So we have 12, which is technically 1 short, but you can always do install advanced psychographics. 13 means a 7-point Beal. So if we miss the Beal here, we lose. Now I pray. There's no praying to be done with the counter surveillance. The question is math. So I think we run archives. Then we counter surveillance out the Mina. And then we run. Yeah, we almost definitely have enough money. We have at least 5 credits, right? Like, I don't think they do that until they have the Beal, but like if they don't have an agenda, and it could be any agenda we can win on, and then they top deck the Beal, like it's sick. So we're just hoping we have enough money. I think we do. I hit up the NSG both at PAX Australia and played a bracket. It was great to meet everyone in the locals. Heck yeah. Border control and HQ would be very surprising, considering the influence. Did you get your promo card? People forget this can go HQ. This thing is so good on HQ. And they also need to spend no credits, right? Like, well, they can spend, they'll get daily quest money. Oh, okay, that doesn't do anything. We actually can let that fire. I'm going to let that fire because I don't want to do the math. They have just enough credits to cycle Beal right now. Yeah, now that we make them spend 1, right? They still get pad campaign daily quests, so they still have more money than we think they do. But they can fire this. I don't want to do the math. Some of our cards in our hand are good, not all of them. If we don't let this fire, what do we lose? Boomerang? Yeah, whatever. All right, they're going to lose 1 to this. All right, we're good. We have another one of these. Mind you, we're going to draw 5 after this, right? So this is, well, might as well break this as free. So we definitely could have broken the first one. How many axes? 13? I think we're going to do, wait, is this, it's up to, right? Oh, we have to pay all 13. Oh, yeah, okay. All right, well, it was there the whole time. Psycho, Beal, Mad, Daily Quest, Psycho, draw. Good game. That's scary if that one sneaks through. You know, funny enough, if they didn't do that, we would eventually get to enough tags. And at that point, we'd actually be a bit scared. I forgot we had to pay 13 up front. I thought we could only get away with paying 4 because we only need to see 4 additional cards. But yeah, counter surveillance makes you pay as much. But yeah, if they just played a bit cool, I don't know if we would have to pressure. They made us pressure at that turn. And yeah, we had it. We're lucky that we did have 1 in hand. Mind you, they both could have been the bottom, and then that actually would have been awkward. Our best bet, if that was the case, is we'd have to like draw, boomerang. Oh, draw, boomerang, and then go. They were 1 tag off of double Psycho. Cror, how's it going? I don't know if they have doubles. They could. Did we see double in hand, actually? But they need 2 agendas. No, you can't double Psycho in a turn. Oh, I see what you mean. You could have done install Psycho. Yeah, you're totally right. Before the Mad. If they have double Psycho, they can do it. Hey, thanks for the game. It's not a play that I respect, and I think you should. Yeah, double Psychic graphics actually is like very legitimate. Yeah, Mad was way too much of a telegraph, but I don't know even. So like I've been playing a deck like this in startup and been really enjoying it. I don't know if I would have. I guess we saw the Psycho graphics. If they mad you, there's not that many things they can get. I got my promo cards. Heck yeah. I love in the article because they say those are the promo cards for this year, and that's really exciting because see you at convention next year or whatever. All right. We're going to do some news. Let's do some news real quick. Let's do it the quick stuff first, because I think we're actually going to talk about this one. It's a bit of a sleepy day today. A lot of people, it's American Thanksgiving, so there's not a lot of games on JNet. 10's actually not that bad. But a lot of the audience from America is asleep or celebrating with their family. I really want to go to PAX, but at a pinched nerve in my neck, I'm going to keep me home. Seabass, oh, I hope you're feeling better. I don't know the extent of that, but I hope you're doing all right. Gaming content. Mayor, thank you. All right, we're just talking about this. Null Signal games at PAX Unplugged. It's as soon as December 2nd, right? To 4th, which is next week. It's next Friday. So that's coming up soon. There's tournaments and meetups. Come see it. They're doing stuff. Saturday, December 3rd, there'll be a Netrunner East Coast Championship. That's a really good title. I know folks are playing in that. So that's awesome at the tabletop tourney area. You'll go have fun. Good luck in that. I don't think it's going to be a huge tournament, and that's a sick title to have. Maybe from a small, maybe a potentially small tournament. I don't know. So that's really nice if you can get out there. So Saturday, December 4th, we're running our drop-in, drop-out startup Netrunner event. That's super casual, super easy. Events like this are really good because some people, it's hard to commit to playing, you know, like 4 or 5 rounds of a thing at a convention where there's so much other stuff going on. So do check that out. And of course, Overclock promos for their 2022 convention season. These are really nice. I got one of these signed by Scott Aminga. Treasure it. It's better now, but sitting for too long is rough. Ah, beans. You can play standing. You can get a standing desk maybe. But yeah, I hear you. Can confirm a chump like me won the tournament in the 8-person event last year. You mean Deer, our East Coast Netrunner champion? I didn't realize that was your title. You should bring it up more often. I don't know why you haven't changed your Twitch title. Congrats. All right, other news. Firstly, yeah, we've been mentioning this today. There's no way not to mention it. Hey, Izzy, how's it going? How's the Reno? Argelian should be coming out soon. Spoiler season starts really soon. Again, end of November is what we last heard. I have to record a video this weekend. Not going to tell you when that's out, but subscribe to the YouTube channel, I reckon. But we're gonna have some really good cards. Like I think very big set defining cards to spoil on this season, which on this channel this season. So stay tuned. I also stay tuned to the Null Signal website because I'm pretty sure they're gonna start their spoilers or have an article relatively soon. Maybe as soon as tomorrow would be my guess, saying like this is the spoiler season. Tune in for this day, for this day, for this day to this channel, stuff like that. So that's gonna be fun. I'm even more excited to see how pumped you are. They're good cards. Like there's been this nice history between like, you know, man, I don't know how they do this, right? I do not know who internally organizes and says like which person, which group, what entity spoils certain cards. Classically, I've been getting criminal cards, which is really fun. They're really tricksy cards. not the one time, but the time before, we got like Geist-like cards, which is really fun. And I think that's really on brand for the channel. This stuff, they gave us kind of our old favorites of some extent, but they just gave us like really, really heavy hitters. And we're lucky enough to be able to spoil early in the season. So there are things that people are going to know talking about the rest of the cards. And I think you have to do that. Patrick is doing the Lord's work. I specifically requested Andre to get the worst possible cards. Oh, I see. Thank you, Pat. I think we got good stuff here. I think we do really have good stuff. And maybe, Pat, I think next week, if you're here, we might be able to talk about them. Maybe. When you only get crim cards, it's like, what are y'all trying? I don't know. I assume that people like know what everyone's into and be like, oh, you're the Shaper player or you're the Slums cast or whatever. Yeah. Known criminal level Metropole Grid. Hey, I have a Shaper Toque and you cannot prove otherwise. Yeah, I want to talk about a really like, I was going to say hardcore, but maybe this is the opposite of hardcore. It's like technically a really dry topic, but a really interesting topic. Did you all read this today? This thing is exactly everything I wanted. Not only is this like a really well-written article that Sangren put together talking about the changes to the organized play policies. You remember that survey we did a while ago talking about like which track we can put the train on unless they access snare with DreamNet or whatever. Not only does it explain the changes, not only does it explain why the changes, but it also goes through the survey results. And the survey results are buck wild. Not too surprising, but there's some really funny points that I think are worth talking. And I want to talk about this. If you all think this is boring, let me know immediately, because you only have a 6-second delay before we get into this. If the worst cards are good stuff, just how good is the set? Every card I have is playable. I do think that Null Signal hides their unplayables. And no, that's not true. That's not true. Someone did spoil Dag, didn't they? But it was Anzuke, right? I mean, if you really think that they're great stuff, but the worst cards in the set, I highly doubt it. It sparked a bunch of discussion in our Discord. Yeah, ours too. In fact, hey, Eric, I'm around. Wanted to hear your full thoughts on this article. Fantastic. Good evening. Hopefully you're feeling better. I love the breakdown of the answers at the end too. Yeah, this is like everything I wanted in this article. So Millhouse, this is Eric, who used to be like the big judge in Montreal, and he hasn't played Netrunner in a long time. Everyone say hi. But this was a conversation that I know he tunes in every once in a while to a stream, and we were talking about this when we were doing the survey, and he's like, let me know when they update on this, because Jeff said he would update us on this. And this is really cool because I think this is important going forward, and this is important to understand as something if you're going to organize play. Maybe as soon as next week you're going off to PAX Unplug. You should know this. I think I might be spoiling some jankier cards this season. Oh, okay. I'm actually more excited about that. I just want you to know if someone thinks this article is boring, I think they are boring. Sanjay, you and I are on the same page. Okay, shout out to Sengren. I think this is a really well-written article. The middle section, fantastic. So there is a change in the rules. Buckle up. Check out our newest version of the organized play policies. This is referred as OPP later on in the article. This is the version tournament organizers should use, but we will continue to take feedback on the changes to further improve the policies in future versions. I think that's just like an ongoing sentence that happens with Null Signal in general. So let them know if there's something that comes up. Sometime in the first half of next year, we are hoping to continue to upgrade this document, both in terms of coverage and usability. In summary, the most important aspects of the new policies for players and judges to be aware of are as follows. And the bold stuff are super important. Judges should not issue warnings for missed triggers, mandatory or otherwise, unless these triggers are detrimental to their controller. That's actually a really sizable change. From my understanding, going back into it, say that you had a positive trigger like daily casts and you forgot to take your 2 credits, which generally it's considered a positive trigger on most board states. You can invent some where you'd want to actually ignore that. Yeah, you don't get a warning if you miss a positive trigger. Now that means, of course, negative triggers. If you miss a negative trigger that's at your like a penalty to you, you will get a warning. And how warnings mean? It's just the judge says, you know, you got to do better in the near future. And if you don't, I think some amount of warnings actually does upgrade into a game loss or something bad. I think it's probably 3, but I think that's just because of baseball. Question, is Ashes going to rotate out, start up at some point? Yes, top of December. Aiden, very, very soon. I got help from Cobra Bubble. This article would be in readable after help. The part at the bottom where you Sengren, you know, is self-deprecating about some of the questions he asked in the survey. Classic. Yeah, but it started rotation very, very soon. The standard is in a bit. There's a new repair policy. This is why our stream is called RMA today, which advises judges on when and how to go about correcting or repairing the game state after a missed trigger has been identified or take back has been requested. So now there's a policy that judges will do when they see a board state that they need to rewind, and there's like a policy and a way to do that. Is the policy in the OPP? Probably. Have I opened it yet? No. I will. This repair policy states that repairs should only be granted if the player who controls the trigger or asks for the takeback gained no information. And this is a really interesting thing. This is a term that gets used a lot on this channel and in games in theory. I'm like pretty quick with takebacks, either my own takebacks, whether I ask for permission or not, whoops, or my opponent. A lot of times I don't care about takebacks, but the one difference is when you gain information. And this is super important. So now takebacks are not going to be very possible if information has been gained. And this article talks about what information is. And this means the term information actually has to be defined on a rules layer or on a rules level in the rules document. And information is actually really interesting. It's not just like, did you access a card, but it can be as much as, did they res an ice? Did they not res an ice? Like, that's pertinent information. In fact, it's called out explicitly that actually the like explicit act of not doing something is implicit information, and that's actually really important. I think we're gonna get to a conversation in a bit where now there's actually card designs that make this much more difficult, and I think there are some states where that can also honestly be nearly impossible, but that's actually really interesting. And this is good. Judges should tend towards not allowing repairs. Is this good? I think so, unless they can establish with confidence no such information was gained. Yes. Okay, read the full sentence. That is good. And in most cases, judges should not ask the players for their opinion. This is mentioned in the article, but this is something that came up before, and this is addressed very clearly in this article, is that in the conversation of what should happen in a board state where two players can't agree of what happened, some suggestions always came up, like ask the player who is technically in the worst position, as in the person who is their opponent has made a goof, and then maybe the person who didn't make the goof can make a decision like, I cut, you choose. And largely Null Signal wants to avoid doing that. And I think that actually is for the best. I think there's gonna be a lot of awkwardness. And I think a lot of this like strictness of how rules should work, and yet you should call a judge and when there's a rules infraction, or just not even infraction, like somebody misses something, which is super easy to do in this game, is that the judges are there to be the, to make the decisions for you. So you never find yourself in a situation where you have to ask, or you have to like feel like you're obligated to do something because of social pressure or whatever. That's a hard thing to do, like asking for takebacks at, certain situations where, I'd be nice to do it. Point is, you never are going to find yourself in a situation where you have to make any of these difficult decisions if you didn't want to. You just call a judge and the judge does it for you, and that's it. It's very clean. It's very clear. Everyone will be treated the same. It doesn't matter who you're playing against. If they're a good or bad day, everyone gets treated the same. I like that. I think that's really cool. Shouldn't make the player the bad guy. Yeah, nigga, that's exactly what I'm thinking. Is that people don't ever want to be put in, a lot of people don't want to be put in a situation where they can be seen as, why didn't you, as an awkward situation, right? So it's nice for the judges to make the tough decisions. And I think, unfortunately, asking players if they're cool with a situation, it pushes the tough decisions back to players. Exactly. Yes. If your opponent has made a mistake, detrimental or not, it shouldn't be on you to solve it. It's going to be the judges. And that's fantastic. This rationale section is amazing. I think it's really well written. Missed trigger changes. Ultimately, the missed trigger policy feedback we received both through the survey and talking with players led us to the conclusion that player responsible for a card being in play should be the one responsible for its mandatory trigger. So this was an ongoing conversation in this game for a while, and also I know for a while in Flesh and Blood, another card game, a collector card game that has a competitive level. There were some points in time where you were also responsible for your opponent's triggers. So it was you as a player, it was kind of expected that you're going to get all your triggers right, but you're also going to like kind of enforce that your opponent was getting all their triggers right. And it was on both players. It was their responsibility to maintain board state and maintain accuracy of the game. And unfortunately, that's very difficult. And this article straight out says like, we don't want to do that anymore. Basically, you're going to be responsible for your triggers. You can always tell your opponent if they missed a trigger, mandatory or not mandatory, negative or positive trigger. You can remind them if you would like to, but it's no longer on your, it's not on you. You don't have to do it. You can kind of like, you shouldn't be paying attention to the triggers regardless, so you can follow the game, but you're not responsible to do that anymore. And there's a lot of situations, again, where maybe your opponent might miss a positive trigger for them, and then you're in this awkward situation of, do I tell them, do I don't tell them? Again, 90% of the time, people will tell their opponent. A lot of times from my experience, you want a clean game of Netrunner, but now it's a bit more formalized that it's just, you got to do your own stuff. And I think this article specifically calls out that's actually kind of difficult for some players. Maybe you're newer to the game. Maybe you're piloting a difficult deck already, and then knowing all your complex triggers your opponent has in their deck with cards that you might not even know what they do, that doesn't fall on you anymore. And I think that's good. I think that makes this much more accessible. Obviously, explain what you're doing whenever you're playing a game of Netrunner, but that's good. You only have to worry about your side of the table. There are fair reasons to be disappointed with this change. Ultimately, however, the approach seems most correct to us because it's a policy that's enforceable and equitable. Holding players responsible for their opponent's triggers is often asking them to take an active role in their own defeat. That's a really good sentence. That's a large ask in a tense game, and differentiating both players missing a trigger and one player intentionally not reminding, it's basically unenforceable. The other element is there can be a wide information disparity and knowledge about the decks and card pools. As written, the older version of the policy would require warning a new player for failing to understand all their opponent's triggers. That's the idea. That's not only unenforceable, but like we can't expect that of everyone. You can't come to the table and be like, oh, you're technically doing the ordering wrong of your as prognostic queue loop. Like, nah, it's not great. So that's good. I did see a few people ask, what if I want a mandatory trigger of my opponents to occur? The trigger is still mandatory, so you observe it as a player. You can, in the moment, remind the players to take the trigger or call a judge. So yes, you can still keep people on top of it if you really want to, but it's no longer your responsibility to ensure that your opponent is playing as cleanly as they should. You don't want the OP rule to penalize the more sporting player, only penalize the sports player. Learned a lot about this lately. We stand the judges. Yeah, we do. We really do. Repairing the board state. So this is the big thing, is now there's going to be official rules that I haven't read yet about how you repair the board states. So in prior versions of organized play policies, there were instructions to repair a board state, but not a lot of instructions on how. We tried to unify those cases where a repair should occur and start to outline guidance for judges on how to carry out these repairs. This is really interesting. So basically that has a question of, was information gained? And they'll go through a lot of these examples of what they can do in certain board states based off of what information was gained or not gained. In short, in most cases, if you've missed a trigger, and you've called and said like, hey judge, I missed a beneficial trigger for me. If any information was gained, and again, sometimes gaining no information is implicit information, so it's technically a bit more strict at this point, you can't repair it. There are some board states where it's pretty simple. Like if you run, there's some situations I do think that you can get information and still get a missed trigger. I'm not 100% sure. If someone can answer this, maybe we'll get to it. But the idea is if you run HQ, access the card, you've gained information, and then you say, can I get my endurance counter? I think most people realize the endurance counter has no relevance to the card you've accessed in HQ, unless at some point they print a card that punishes you for having power counters. Like that's when this becomes a different thing. But largely that's how that works. All repairs are based on this idea of information. Currently, we don't have a formal definition of information. This is going to be defined at some point, which is ridiculous and amazing, because so many things in Netrunner can provide information, including no actions giving implicit information. This is so important. Information can also be highly specific to the board state. The common thing to check for are cards drawn, cards being rezzed or unrezzed, or their opponent making any decisions to use or not use a card ability. Under this setup, there are a lot of situations at a competitive level where repairs are not possible. And that's like kind of a big thing. In the article, I'm not 100% on board with this. I'm not on board. Like I don't understand exactly all the circumstances, but if I miss my daily cast and then draw a card, technically I've gained information, so I can't get my daily cast is my understanding. I think some people might disagree with that, because if you're going to draw a card first click anyways, does the daily cast credits, is that actually something you can use the information off of? I don't know. So we'll figure out in a second how that works. I was listening to ShadowNet back and Whiteblade suggested a 0 take back. I think that's maybe like a quite a, I think 0 takebacks is definitely possible, but I think like this is the problem. Is like, why do we not just do 0 takeback? I think there's two reasons. Firstly, there's takebacks for misplay reasons, but then there's also takebacks for repair reasons. This article addresses both of them, right? Like it addresses the fact that sometimes you just miss a mandatory trigger that's beneficial, detrimental. There needs to be ways to formally repair that, and that's what this article is about. But then there's also such situations, and they call that out. Like maybe you run a remote server where all the ice is already rezzed, and you already know what the card in the remote server is, but then you're short a credit. Should you be able to click for a credit retroactively so you have enough money to get through because you did the maths wrong? Some people say yes. And I think actually the rules are in very strict situations, yes, you should get the take back. But if we get to a game where there's absolutely 0 takebacks and it's very crisp, I think that will probably make better competitive Netrunner. But then I think this game is also less easy to get into. I don't know if that's actually the better thing to do. It also will make a slower game. And that's kind of the way that a lot of times, like, I don't know. I do like that when I sit down against and I make a small mistake, or your opponent makes a small mistake. If I'm not playing at the top table of the world, so people are very willing to give takebacks. And I appreciate that. I think that makes this very complex and difficult game a lot more approachable. But again, now it's not up to you to give that, just call the judges. It's a very clever move they do IMO, because the value of information changes at the level of play. Way more information comes into the game at competitive level. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I don't know if the rules actually deal with that. They say like information of like at certain tiers. I don't know if they can do that. I think his rationale for the 0 takeback personnel policy was just well justified on the episode. I don't know if I've heard that one. The repair policy is very strict. The reason for that is not because it's the way that all Netrunners should be played. The goal of the OPP is to create clear guidelines for judges and players so that when a difficult situation arises, the judge can have some clear guidance and players can understand why a ruling was given the way it was. One common thing I saw in discussions around repairs was that the judges should ask the opponent about how to resolve certain elements. So we talked about this, and the idea is that we're the OPP team, the judges team are trying to get players out of the decision seat. They're basically saying if there's an issue with the game and the board state, the judges will resolve it. It's not on you to make decisions because we don't want people to feel pressure to rule certain ways based off of how they want to be perceived, what they think they'd like to have done to them, and what they'd want to happen on this table. So basically all they're saying is that they want to get the burden off of the player to make these meaningful decisions, and that's what the judges do. The judges actually have quite a stressful job. I guess at different levels of tournaments it gets more and more stressful, but that's what they're there for. They're there to make the difficult calls. It's not meant to be your fault anymore. I was surprised about the Bologna ruling. I would always allow the take back to give them the credit, but I would have expected a judge to deny it. Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. I'm a bit surprised by that, but the survey breakdown part is really fun. I agree it was a good argument, and I think I still basically agree with him for high-level events. If I were top tables especially, I'd rather call the judge than make the call myself. With this, Izzy, or with the white blade no takebacks thing? Because I'm not actually sure I know what that is. All right, this is really wild because the survey went out a while ago. We did a bit of it on this stream, and just to seeing what people's results are, and then how the results change, and then how the OP policies kind of reflect that are actually fascinating. So firstly, this is the question in italics. A player runs HQ and accesses a snare. Snare is a card that says when accessed, it does 3 net damage. So they have 2 cards in hand, so this will be lethal. However, they realized that the runner forgot their Dream Net trigger, which is a mandatory trigger that says on the first run every turn that's successful, you have to draw a card. So they would not die to the flatline. How should the judge resolve this? Now, the vast majority, 78%, said the runner draws a card. The court player may choose to trigger snare. So 1 out of 5 players, which is not insignificant, says the runner should die because they forgot their mandatory trigger. They should just be flatlined. I'm in this camp. Not that it makes me more correct, but we're going to see if that actually lines up with the policy at the bottom. But in theory, technically information was gained here, but it's not like really actionable information. So I'm not actually sure how the policy lines up for this. This is hilarious. If the runner had access to hedge fund instead, should they get the Dream Net trigger? And more people say yes. What's with that? Why? I take it because they think like, oh, I won. Don't take my win away from me. But this is like, it's just a hedge fund. It's just a hedge fund. It's fine. We're playing Netrunner. This is like so funny to me. And it's like only a slight bump. Somehow a D3 to 17. This doesn't add up to 100. But yeah, I think that's really funny. A tricky thing I have in mind is if people think judges are too harsh, you get the sentiment like, oh, I don't want to call a judge because we can just be cool and figure it out ourselves. That's something I want to avoid. I'm in the 1 in 5 camp here, to be honest. You think that the runner should die? The flatline? There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just like, it's weird. It's so weird. It's like, it's what you expect out of this game. Because I think I expect out of this game, like Jinteki.net play, where everything just happens automatically. And I think I don't know. I think that's just like the overall, you know, what people think of what they want out of this game. And I think I just want clean play. I don't want games to be lost because of mistakes and errors. I want them to be lost because of tactical mistakes and errors, not stuff like this. And there are players who make very little to no mistakes, and they generally are, you know, at the top tables for many reasons. But yeah, that's not how I want to win a game of Netrunner ever. Unfortunately, maybe if I'm going to win the game and it's important, I'll feel differently. But yeah. I mean, Eric made a good argument for being no takebacks, and in practice, that basically means calling a judge if someone wants to redo. That's easy what you're meant to be doing, though. And like Sanjay says, some people want to just be like, oh yeah, we can do this. Don't worry. Don't call the cops. Here's my insurance. Like, you have to. In theory, you should. And I'll be the first to admit it. I have done many, even as soon as Worlds this year, playing at Crown of Servers. I've done takebacks and like basic rewinds without calling a judge over. In theory, you're supposed to call a judge. I even think I called it out in my tips at a tournament. You should call a judge over anytime that there's anything going on. But I don't. It's faster a lot of the times. And there's situations where I think both players feel like, oh yeah, that's fine. That's the same. But in theory, that's not the case anymore. I think. Hey Duke, I think this is the former mostly because DreamNet triggers on successful run and not much happens between that and the snare. Because of the hedge fund? This is why I wanted to do the survey, because I don't think what I expect out of the top table game should be what I rules say, especially when I'm out of step with the community. I think that was a big thing, Yusengrin, and I know I messaged you after this. My responses to the survey are entirely different if I'm talking about spectating top tables at Worlds as a viewer, a player, or a commentator, or casual tables at any other like event that I go to. If I'm trying to watch like the top 16, the best players at Worlds, I do think there should be no takebacks. I think at top competitive play, I think takebacks should just not be offered. You should not ask for them. They should just strictly not be offered. I think games will be playing slower, but I think at that level that we should have that strictness. I do think we should. I think judges should be called over for everything, and then it's up to the judge to like figure it out. But that's the thing. It's like when you get to a wider audience, I don't think I agree with that. Also, hi, hey, like opposed to Mr. Earthrise trigger or something. No, oh yeah, right, because there's nothing in between. Okay. The runner accesses HQ, accesses a hedge fund, then takes a click to draw a card. The runner realizes that they forgot to place a power counter in their endurance, which is a mandatory trigger that triggers on successful run. Should the runner get the power counter? Most people say yes, but more than last time said no here. What about if the runner clicked for a credit? So this is the thing that I don't fully understand, is the difference between drawing a card and clicking for a credit. Clicking for credit is not information gained. So this being a higher yes percentage lines up with currently the repair and the information gain board state. Drawing a card is gaining information. So in theory, the no should be higher here. However, to me, there is no card in my deck that I draw that is going to want me to have the power counter more or less. It's just time, not so much the card I drew, albeit I did gain more information. So this, like, I understand the logic behind it. I think it's very clear, but I personally don't think it matters. I think the endurance counter should just happen. Unless, again, on top tables, you forget about it. Then, like, you know, hit the bricks. If the runner realized they forgot the endurance counter before taking any clicks, that's 92% yes. No surprise. But, like, technically wrong, right? Because you access the card. That's a weird thing. It's like, why is accessing a card to people more information than drawing a card? Not always the case. It's a professional agreement for clean Netrunner, no takebacks. Yeah, for professional Netrunner, I think so. I don't think that kind criteria works unless the OPP has another strictness level for top cut games. Yeah, that's the thing, is like whether there's a stricter organized play policy for a higher level, a higher tier bracket, maybe there could be. I don't know if it's a one size fits all is the best thing with such a complex game in regards to top tables versus casual local events. Yeah, I agree with Frisbee. And I think a lot of casual events, like obviously some of them don't even have judges. It's like judges for rules calls. Like I don't think I've been in a long time at a casual event where people just haven't resolved things on the table themselves. And the stakes are so low that people generally don't mind. It's not like, oh, I want you to get a game loss. So it's awkward for sure. Awkward. We just have so many important things happen at different times on successful runs, on access, on the run ending. JNet Gaming. Okay, this is where it's important. The changes to the rules as currently outlined would mean that the majority opinion the runner gets their trigger would apply in every case. However, one case is worth clarifying. Once the runner starts another run and the corp chooses to res or not res ice, Endurance's trigger could not be repaired because the runner gained information about the hidden board state. Am I mistaken to think that this is the first time the word hidden is used in this article? Because I was assuming that drawing a card is considered gaining information and you would not be able to repair the endurance. But apparently running another server is gaining information, whether it's a res or no res, about hidden board state. This, I don't know if I fully understand the difference about, because endurance, at least I think, is a bit different because it's a mandatory and compulsory, like always positive trigger. If it was something more nuanced, like a trace to clear a tag, like something more meaningful, that would make way more sense to me. But I just don't see any res in which you wouldn't want the endurance counter. So this is more about timing than it is about the logical connection between endurance and the next res. I do think I want to tier out expectations a bit more, but I think that will take a lot of time to formalize for sure. Meanwhile, at a local event, we needed a judge to deal with somebody accidentally leaving cards inside the deck box. Oh yeah, that happens. That happens. That's not going to work in your favor, unfortunately. This is the weird thing. And we talked about this for a while, and I think maybe I got a bit heated when it came to like logical fallacy of some sort. The runner clicked Stargate. Okay, so this is the situation. And it's so funny because I kind of like paused and thought about this. Like, when would this ever happen? And then 2 weeks later, I found myself in the exact same situation. The runner clicked Stargate. The corp player resed their spin doctor, but forgot to draw during the Stargate run. I literally did that the other day. Okay. Then their opponent used Stargate and revealed the top 3 cards. These were all unknown cards. The corp did not have any ice protecting R&D and has no other assets installed, and both players agreed that the spin doctor draw was a missed. Okay, so the idea is it's just a blank Stargate, and then a spin doctor was resed. Which cards was the corporation meant to draw? The majority of people said the corp should get nothing. Now, I think this is very interesting. Largely because resing a spin doctor is not always a beneficial trigger. I think we saw a lot of games of Worlds where resing spin doctor can inherently be a negative trigger. So the corp getting nothing is actually not something I enjoyed because that is sometimes worth gaming to your advantage if that's how this works out. And you know it. You get a warning. It's not something you can continue to do, but I didn't love this. This is what I was in the camp of. The corp player should draw the next 2 cards, card 4 and 5, which are unknown. And there's a lot of conversation being like, no, that doesn't make sense. They were meant to draw 1 and 2. But like the way that I looked at it, and it turns out the way that the rules look at it, is that card 4 and 5 are unknown random cards. And that was the intent of Spin Doctor, to draw unknown random cards. And that's the way that's ruled. The niche interaction was directly referencing a situation arose at Worlds and on Tabletop Simulator. The new OPP rules that the corp should draw the next 2 cards if there was no ice, the corp should have chosen res. I'm really interested to see how that's ruled out in the OPP rules, but that's the idea. They draw 2 unknown cards. Cool. Hey Thanos, drawing a card is info they would know from the already done draw click. The res or not res timing is dependent on how many counters and thus is totally different. Oh, Thanos, huge, 100%. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, so the idea is that that is actually because the corp did something with wrong information, incorrect information. I 100% from that angle agree with it. As soon as the corp has committed to resing ice, understanding that you are on 1 counter instead of 2 counters, you cannot get the counter back. 100% that is correct the way I see it. I didn't look at it like that. I really didn't. I assumed you had like 5 to 6 bow counters, and even then it still matters. But thank you for pointing that out. That's exactly what they mean. I think the thinking here is that the res might not have happened. Yes, Cror as well. Yeah. A good possible read for formulating different level of rules is Magic the Gathering organized play rules. They differentiate between more formal and informal plays. I'm in the same camp as you, Andre. About what exactly, Litterbug? Sorry, the delay makes it hard. Eric, yes, but I don't think that informal play has judges. The OPP is about formal play. It just needs these levels to avoid sloppy play at top tables. If I'm not mistaken, already like the organized play rules for Netrunner have different tiers of I don't know if it's with enforcing, but I know this. I know also like Flesh and Blood back in the day, probably still now, different events were in different tiers. I know for specifically it shows up mostly in Netrunner when referring to levels as casual events. It depends on like how many, like how big the top cut is based on different player pool sizes, but I don't think it's actually about rules enforcement. It's more like, oh, this is a casual event, so if we have 16 players, it's 4 top 1 or whatever. Oh, the corp should get the next 2 cards. That's the way I think about it. But it's really interesting to see that people have different opinions on this. But I do think a lot of this is like it's weird. Part of this is, and I'm not saying that people don't have this, but part of this is like the ethics of the matter of what should happen. But then another part of this is also like understanding different board state potentially. Like I do think there's some board states where this is not necessarily positive or negative. This letter itself, this article doesn't address that, but there's actually a fair few instances where none of this can happen. I think there's one situation where they talk about shuffling a deck and the corp draws another unknown card, but as soon as Daily Business Show is on the table, it's like so hard to repair anything. As soon as Daily Business Show is res on the table, repairing anything to do with R&D is like damn near impossible. And I don't know what happens in that case. I don't know if that comes up at all. Oh, okay. I'm in the same camp as you, Andre, but not about anything specific. Just broadly want to endorse your vibe and opinions. Sanjay, I appreciate it. Hey, David, how's it going? American Thanksgiving stream. If you're enjoying that, happy Thanksgiving. Take backs and gameplay errors. The corporation has scored a false lead. This one's fun, and the runner starts with their turn 1 with 1 tag, 0 credits, and a liberated account installed. The runner clicks liberated account twice, pauses, then asks for a take back here. This is very interesting because I didn't understand this. I think I did not word this question very well. The intent was to indicate that the runner was intentionally trying to sneak information in to see whether their opponent would pop false lead. For the uninitiated, false lead is a 1-3 neutral agenda that the corporation can forfeit to make the runner lose 2 clicks if able. And if able is such a big word on there because the runner only has 1 click left, it doesn't do anything. So you usually see that being popped between click 2 and click 3 to like suddenly end the runner's turn. Now, it wasn't clear from the wording of this, and I'm glad that Ysengrin put in his, like, what he was trying to get out of this, is that the fact that they were trying to do liberate, and then see if the corporation was going to do anything, and if they did, be like, oh, sorry, can I take that back? Yeah, that's not allowed. You can't do that as a runner. Should the judge grant the take back? I think the majority of people, myself included, said yes to this because we did not understand the angle shooting potential of that play. I think they just realized, like, oh, shit, can I take that back? Now, similarly, if the false lead was popped and the judge asks for a callback, should it be granted? Wait, runner clicks, then the core player removes false lead from the game. The runner plays, calls the judge, and asks for a takeback. Should it be granted? 94% say no. Okay, I thought it was going to be yes at the top, no at the bottom, the same like this. And I totally agree with this, is that as soon as the false lead has been used, that gives up way too much information that you can't repair. And it's more so information that the corporation is interested in doing this. It's not so much like, oh, I made a misplay, but you've gained so much information that this was a line of play that's going to be so important they'd forfeit an agenda for. You cannot recover from that. And I agree with that. I think discovering that I didn't elucidate the difference between learning information about your deck versus opponent's information is a distinction that seems like the community makes. Hold on one more time. I think I'm discovering that I didn't elucidate the difference between learning information about your deck versus opponent's information and distinction. Yes, potentially. And I think that was very clear if you just watched my reaction like 2-3 minutes ago, that I didn't understand that it was more about the corpse side of the table not wanting to give the take back from the runner side when it specifically came to, you know, what's it called? But yeah, that's a big part of this is like the understanding to see it from the other side of the table and make sure that's also balanced. False latest corp rebirth into Spark. A Spark? I guess so. I'm gonna make a video, I think, of my top 5 cards I wish didn't exist, and I think False Late's gonna make the list. Oh man, really? Sanjay, False Late's great. I really like False Late. I do not like abilities that fire at every window. And there is a sentence up here which basically makes cards like that very difficult. It is correct that this take back should not be granted. Some very important information was gained. Love it. That's amazing. I also adore False Late. Okay, a core player reveals the top card R&D so both players can see it off a single access. The runner cannot steal trash. What's the resolution? So the idea is that instead of saying like access top of R&D and you show the card, you accidentally reveal it to both players. So the corporation saw the top card of R&D. That's impossible to reveal or to fix. I've seen situations classically, I'm not sure if it's going to be still enforced this way, where the runner has run HQ and accidentally accessed a second card. Basically, they've gained information that they shouldn't have had. That's irreparable. Reparable is probably how people would say that. People said warning. 7% said game loss. If it was top tables, game loss. That's how I find it. I think that is not able to be fixed at all unless it's specifically last click and the corp was just going to straight draw the card. But if it's in the middle of the turn and the corporation sees the top card of their deck illegally, that can give them the most information that they cannot fix. You can shuffle the deck potentially and they can draw an unknown card. I think that comes up. But again, as soon as there's like daily business show, can't do that no more. If I were to make a video of 5 cards I wish it didn't exist, I start with Orson Scott. Okay. Shots fired. This is a difficult process to fix. The repair for the situation would depend on whether things are in the turn. If it's early in the turn and there are unrest cards on the board, the second most popular option is likely correct. Shuffle the corpse deck, the runner acts as a new card warning for the corp player. I think that is probably a bit kinder than I am. Okay. Again, what happens if there's a daily business show? I was very surprised about the 30+8 that said they should give a reshuffle. I think that, yeah, Eric, kind of me too. Like, I don't think I even consider this. I just think there's a lot of board states where shuffling is not possible. I think it's largely just daily business show, let's be honest. But I'm kind of surprised about that. Yeah, it's still weird. It's weird. Judges quaking in their converses right now. Strange. But yeah, apparently there's ways to fix that. This is wild. This is the heaviest game loss. A player plays red level clearance and installs a Vitruvius illegally. Red level clearance can only install non-agenda cards. Then they get scored the next turn. What happens? Game loss. And yeah, well, game losses are not the preferred outcome. In cases like this, it's only equitable outcome. These are the sort of things where things are just like foobar. You just can't fix them. And sometimes you get a game loss. I think the big time that we saw something like this is that I think it was during Worlds like 2 or 3 years ago. There was 2 regions installed in a server. And that is technically not always the most important thing, but it's just not thinking you can fix. It means that the runner has been playing with totally different information for the last couple turns. And these are the sort of things that like are just, you can't repair. Unfortunately, that's it. I was a passionate judge back then. I love this stuff. Yeah, I'm really into this stuff too, even though I've never judged. Is it right to have a full resolution process based around a single card, DBS in this case, or is it better to have a base resolution process with exceptions for cards that mess with it? I think it's definitely better to have a base case. The problem is if there are any other cards, because it's not just daily business show. There's also like that, I don't know if it's called Shannon Player or something, but there are certain cards that care about ordering of R&D that will say specifically put a card on the bottom of R&D, or even like Bamboo Dome, stuff like this that said like, or like Psychokinesis, like rearrange the top 5 cards of your deck. If the order of the deck is known, I feel like that should be the clause attached to things, not so much like daily business show section 1.4.3.x, right? I think that's interesting. A lot of times those cards don't see play, but again, once those cards do see play, things like just shuffling to get another card are not possible solutions, and that's a bit weird. Okay, this is the last case, I think. So hang on if you don't care about this. Player has exposed a Bologna. This is a very interesting one. A player has exposed a Bologna in a remote with all ice is res, and the corp has no other installed face down cards or card abilities that can affect the run. So all fully known information. The runner has 2 click left and makes a run. Once they access the Bologna, they realize they're a credit short. Should the judge grant a take back for a credit before making the run? They say no. Some say yes. and it's actually closer than I thought it would be. I was surprised by the answers to this question, given that most people allowed repairs for DreamNet endurance triggers. In this case, I think most people read this as player error and distinguish it from a missed mandatory trigger on that basis. And yeah, I think that's how the majority of people see this. They said you did Netrunner bad, as opposed to this is not a thing that Jinteki.net will fix for you. And I think that's the biggest difference. If I was playing on Jinteki.net, would I have still run into this issue? And the answer is yes. The new OPP rules that if any information was gained, a takeback should not be granted. But in this case, if the corp gave up to no information during this change, the policies would have the judge grant the takeback. If this happens to you, in this very, very bespoke situation in which you know what you're running on, you know all the ice is rezzed, and every single potential asset and upgrade is all rezzed on the table, in that a very, very niche case, and again, there's more caveats to this, no ice can be firing subroutines that have trace or any decisions, there can be no border control on the table, there can be no Formicary hiding in another remote server. If all of these decisions, like Formicary messes this shit up. As soon as you have one unrezzed ice, you can't take a take back. You can't, because you didn't Formicary. That's information. That's what's wild. And I think this addresses it, is that like, if there are certain cards, the wording on the question was meant to imply this, but I saw at least a few players mention that niche interactions that were not explicitly mentioned in the question setup. That's probably what I'm talking about now. This takeback would be acquired in the OPP only if the corp had no unrezzed ice, assets, or upgrades, and had no opportunities to play into traces or make other similar decisions during the course of the run. For example, the balloon is protected by a ping. Okay, so firstly, there are a lot of cards in Netrunner where if you don't use them, you are technically giving and not giving information at the same time. In my first draft, I explicitly called out DBS, but I cut it for brevity. Yeah, I think that's totally fair. So, do you guys remember Street Peddler? I don't think we have to talk about Street Peddler. We can talk about Gachapon. Gachapon is a card. It's not consistent, but allows you to look at the top 6 cards of your deck and install a virtual or a hardware, or sorry, a virtual or program, reducing the cost by 2, virtual resource. Now that one's, I don't think, the best example, because that card doesn't really interact on instant speed that well, besides pulling a clot in instant speed. But like a card like Street Peddler exists. And this is a card, in theory, in Eternal, not so much in Standard anymore, that when you install it, you hosted 3 cards on it face down. And at instant speed, you could install one of those cards, reducing the cost by 1. Now, it has to be installable card, so it can't be an event. But this card is sick. It's one of the best cards in... Go off, Rap God. It's one of the best cards back in the day in the format. There's a whole article about why this is the best card. So there were some really weird niche plays with Street Peddler that people just didn't respect. Councilman was a niche card, saw very little play, but the existence of Councilman that could be hiding on the bottom of a Street Peddler meant that every time that you rezzed an asset or upgrade, you had to ask your opponent, in theory, is this okay? And nobody did that. Of course they didn't do that. Nobody played Councilman, let alone nobody had the foresight to ask for that shit, because that's nonsense. Hades Shard. Hades is a really good one too. Hades Shard lets you access all of archives at instant speed. But the thing is, there are cards like this in the game. I think Gachapon exists as one of them. I think Malia Zaloka, if there's just any unrezzed asset on the table, and it's very clear that this is called out on the thing, is that there are these cards that technically have relevant paid abilities or relevant res triggers at every single paid ability window, potentially during a run or during any sort of confrontation, whether it's in the combo or, you know, something like that. And I think the more of these cards that exist in the game, the way harder it is for this to ever be relevant, because there's just some board states where if you spend a click and they don't pop the Gachapon, you could argue that implicit information was given, as long as, again, there are the cards to support that case, right? Like if somebody, I don't know, like what's even a good example of this? Like I'm going to Chicana. This is not exactly a good example, but if someone like installs something mid run, what is that terrible one? I have one here. Shit, no, these are all terrible examples. Is this it? No. What is the one that increases the install cost of ice? Technically not relevant to my example, but I've already doubled down on asking for the name. Street Peddler on the table was a nightmare for FA. Yeah, it was hard for FA, but it's hard for everything. Not Watchdog. The source. Yeah, the source is actually a good example. The Shaper resource. Yeah, you know the one. It's virtual. Malia is a huge one, so easy to skip past the window. Yeah, no, Thomas, nobody respects Malia, and Malia should be in more decks. Hernando? No, not the res cost, but the install cost. Network exchange, thank you. Okay, look. This is a terrible example, but these are the sort of cards that could be produced at instant speed that could have an impact. The idea is that if after I installed an ice, and then, okay, well, hold on. This is not a good example because this is an interrupt, but I'm just showing this because it can give you an example of like sometimes what this can spiral into. Say on click 2, the corporation puts an ice in front of another ice while the runner has a gachapon installed. In theory, this is not an interrupt, so the runner would have to crack their network exchange before, but the fact that they didn't crack their gachapon to install a network exchange is implicit information gained. So you could say, I can't allow you to take that ice back because you know I don't have access to a network exchange. That's ridiculous. No one's ever said that sentence in the history of Netrunner before. And I'm not saying that we should potentially make rules for this, but I do say that there is actually big parts of the design space that make it very difficult for that rule to even be relevant. Because there are some edge cases where you could argue implicit information is gained every paid ability window on the spot. Savoir-faire with Cloud Threat. I even forget what savoir-faire does. I was so happy to see someone sleeved it and then very sad when I read Mati more very closely. Net Analyzer. What's Net Analyzer? No, that's the Shaper one, right? Oh, that's not even a card. I discovered a new red sand card. Daniel, it's so easy to play the game. I've discovered a new red sand card. It's like half of them. Shout out to, what's it called? Diana's Hunt. I'm saving that phrase to use at random times. It's a good one. It's just the two of us. So that being said, it's very interesting to know that this is true. I just think that very soon through the history of Netrunner, there are going to be times where this clause is like near unenforceable. I think forma carry already kind of blows it wide open. If at any point you breach a server and I have an unresed card in another remote server or another central server in a server, I could argue that you can't take it back because you know that ice is not a forma carry that I resed. That's ridiculous. That sucks, but that's technically true. And I think that is kind of going to be a thorn in the side of this rule case, is that as soon as someone breaches a server, you know it's not forma carry, and yeah, technically you gain information. So it's a bit of a bummer on that case. I would like to say that one of my spoiler cards technically falls into this camp. Buckle up. That being said, I don't think we addressed this, but the fact that most people say no as opposed to yes because they say it's a skill error, I think, and this is again totally opposite of competitive play to casual play, I'm totally on board with a take back for clicking for credit here because I do not want my opponent to feel like they need to spend 7 minutes calculating the res and break cost of ice and then the Bologna credits 3 or 4 times in a row. I've done that to know that they're credit perfect. Obviously that's maybe, it sounds like a ridiculous sentence because I think that's what people do anyways, but the idea is that like I want this game to be accessible enough where if somebody makes a simple mathematical error, they don't lose the game on the spot. Now if it's top table of worlds, yeah, again, hit the bricks, you should have done it good. But if it's casual Netrunner, someone asks me for a take back, I think I'm good with it, but again, I call the judge, not if it's casual. Is that just when the game in Netrunner is math to use breakers? To some extent, that's how the game was advertised to a lot of people. But I think if you biffed your math by 1, I'll give it to you. I know I will. It doesn't matter what I'll do. That's not the rules. But like, that's why I think I'm surprised that this is this low. But yeah, I feel like it's a very clear difference between missing a trigger, which should be mandatory, or just like doing game wrong. If you think the game is just about calculating maths and odds and numbers, I feel like that is technically true. But then on the other side, people could argue that the game was about memory and remembering what's in servers and orders. But now we're also allowed note taking. So like, I do think you can widen that opinion of what is required skill in this game. It could have forgotten it was Bologna. No. You can ask. You can note take. You don't forget things anymore. When's Netrunner algebra breakers? Yo, IT department! ! IT department. We got your back. What if the runner doesn't know it's a Bologna? No, that's correct. The answer is no. If you've run and then you realize you're in 4 credits and then it's a Bologna, you didn't know it's a Bologna, you can't take that back. You know, that makes sense. I don't think a lot of people would argue that. Apparently not a lot of people do. What if the runner doesn't know it's a Bologna but asks for the takeback before breaking the last piece of ice? Should they be granted a takeback by the judge? Wow, it's interesting. That's the same numbers as this. Again, the OPP rules that a takeback be granted here provided the corp had no decision to make other than resing and using an NGO front. Isn't this incorrect though? Because couldn't the card being resed, couldn't that be like a manogram or anoetic and then they realized that? So I'm not sure if I fully understand this. Because I do think that once you breach the last piece of ice, there is, again, the forma carry rule or whatever. Like, I don't know if that's exactly true all the time. Hey, Andre, always called it maths. I thought it is a UKism. Maths is definitely from the UK. But there's a fair bit of my vocabulary that I think is directly cribbed from the UK. I think a big part of that is my parents immigrated from Yugoslavia back in the day. And so a lot of the English content that they interacted with was from Britain. And so since a young age, there's a lot of British TV and film that I was growing up with. People here do not say maths. It's just much more fun. The whole forma carry etc. situation also gets weirder with open deck lists. Like, what if I know you don't have a card in your deck that would have a relevant trigger? Oh, that's true too. Yeah, open deck list does make this a bit interesting. A bit more interesting. Sometimes less interesting. Forma carry is going to mess everyone up. Yeah, that's the thing. As soon as you have a trigger like that that's relevant on just about every breach, like, oh, it's so hard not to gain information. And I'm really interested to see how information is going to be defined, because I do think that there's a potentially huge holes. Again, the OPP rules that a take back be granted here. We've read that. A player declares to run HQ, their opponent reses an ice, and the runner player says, wait, I want to take that back. What should the resolution be? The run should continue, says 90% of people. I think I would say that too. And then the same thing happens, and this happened at World. Somebody said, they made some sort of motion that kind of signaled a run on HQ, and the opponent snap resed before they could say, like, actually, I'm not sure. I do think that, like, this is another thing that's not in rules, but I do think that there is like a basic understanding. Generally, I always pause. I never want to do anything quickly. When my opponent says run, I'll be like, okay, approach, and I'll formalize it. I think formalizing these steps make it much harder to hit these situations. Like, anytime the runner's about to access, I will even access, even if it's like an unopened R&D, they've run R&D, obviously they want to access R&D, but I'll always say access, and then they have to say yes. I think if we go out of the way to keep that sort of, and I don't think it's actually bogs the game down too much, but if you keep that basic thing, okay, approach, yes, movement, yeah, if you just say those basic words, it stops this from happening. There's obviously still needs to be ways to address this, but fewer people said the run should continue. Having thought about this more, I think in the first situation, the run should continue as the current OPP would suggest. In the second scenario, the judge should take some time to talk to both players. I'm surprised to read this to some extent, and determine what sort of interval was allowed and how the players have been communicating prior. But the rollback should not occur, but the court player may be given a warning if the judge determines the player acted out of turn. Yeah, that's interesting. You can't do snap res too fast. This situation actually comes up pretty aggressively if you're playing like Prognostic Q Loop and then Masterwork decks, because you have a lot of triggers that fire on the top of the run, and corporations, sometimes you'd be run HQ. This happens a lot on Jinteki on net, and they'll just snap res ice, and you have to be like, hold on, I'm resolving. So yeah, like Crim because I hate math. Oh, you're gonna love this as deck. In French, we say les mathématiques. It doesn't exist in singular. I didn't realize that. Yeah, I guess so. Honestly, it sounds like the simplest answer is ban forma carry. Thomas, I do not think that that's a silly idea. I do think that there are certain cards that could be banned just for rules reasons. Yeah, like no joke. I think the game losing forma carry, it is an interesting card. It does really cool stuff in like Wayland decks. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that could be something. Not that I think forma carry is that problematic yet. I think there's other cards that kind of fit that. But yeah, I don't think it's out of the question. How many maths do you need to figure out? The number of credits to get into server? Arithmetic, geometry, calculus, topology. I would think it's just the one math. But you have to do multiple maths though. Like not fields, but you got, if there's two numbers, you've done maths. So the exact situation was the runner said, I'll run HQ, then supposedly realized that there was now ice on HQ. Honestly, all here for an OP headache ban. There should just be a list. You're saying I would love to see the shit list of cards that like OP just absolutely hates to have to address, and they address consistently. But not only because it's interesting and then Schadenfreude, but also because I think it shows something about design of certain cards that do mesh or don't mesh well with this game. And I think forma carry doesn't mesh well with this game. I think if you played on Jinteki.net and you played forma carry, you'll learn quickly. It doesn't mesh well with this game always. It's a cool effect though. Forma carry led to one Queen Bee player being disqualified from the tournament since it's a non-B Hymenoptera. Forma carry is an anti-B card, right? I feel like you used a word that said anti-B. Out of curiosity, what other card would you consider banning for complexity? Hey, Steven, how's it going? It's not so much complexity of like the card itself, but the complexity that with rules situations. If you ask me off the top of the dome, Spark should be in the toilet. Spark should have been destroyed many, many years ago. There should be no card that is relevant at every single paid ability window in the game. This is an absolute nightmare. Before you take any damn action, you have to ask the opponent, can I go? Because they can res a stupid zero cost upgrade or whatever advertisement. Of course, on a board state where they have everything res, it doesn't matter. But if they have one unresed asset or upgrade every single paid ability window, this shouldn't exist. Even worse, free lunch. This shouldn't exist. This is a relevant trigger at every single damn paid ability window. That shouldn't happen in the game. You should not have to be like, can I spend the credit? Can I boost my break? Like, no, this shouldn't happen. My most hated was Clan Vengeance. Yeah, you're technically right. How's it going, Ian? Clan Vengeance falls into that category. Clan Vengeance gets sympathy points because it's kind of a blast of a card, but technically is another card that's relevant at every goddamn paid ability window. Excuse my language. I'm getting heated. IT department was top tier rules nonsense. IT department to me falls into the category of the text on it is nonsense and it's not fun, but not so much that it's like technically a rules nightmare because you can print out exclamation mark IT department. But yeah, please sir, can I spend a credit? No, this shouldn't exist. Ob is a big one, but I'll protect it with my life. I do not think Op falls anywhere near the last two because the Op abilities, that's the thing. When I first saw Op, I was convinced that we would see more cards like border control. I know, Sangren, when we played the MNeMiC set, we saw more cards that were just like, trash this at instant speed to draw 2 cards. I think that on an ice should not exist. I don't think there should be an instant speed ability on an ice unless it only triggers on a run during the server. I don't think that card should existed. I think Op is probably okay. I think Op is problematic when there's more easy ways to tutor things, right? Like if there's a 2 cost, you could trash at instant speed on the runner's turn to pull Amalia. Yeah, it's going to be a problem. I think in Eternal, there are technically probably some issues going on, but whatever. Simulchip is relevant. Simulchip is technically relevant, just like clone chip, obviously, or self-modifying code, or whatever you want here. The problem is like there's very few programs that interact in a non-interaction way, right? Like there's very, very few programs that have ongoing board statewide abilities that actually matter. Like the big one obviously is Clot, and like, Sanjay made a whole video, shout out, talking about Clot and how to interact with it. But yeah, technically, sort of. It's basically just Clot. Yeah, it's basically just Clot, right? If there's more cards like this that said like, oh, when this thing's installed, like what is the Dewan or something? Yeah. Right, like this shouldn't exist probably. Because you could instant speed this with a Gachapon, and then technically anytime they install something, implicit information. If you have a Gachapon and the corporation installs a card in a remote server, and you did not pop your Gachapon, they cannot undo it because they got implicit information that you did not Gachapon your Dewan onto the table. Same with SMC or Simulchip. That sucks. This is a rotated card, but you know what I mean. Cash is something Simulchip could grab but has rotated. Cash is cash falls in that. It's weak, but it falls in category for sure. I drew a card at US Nats face down, asked my opponent, can I take my first click? Then looked at my hand for a while, went to take an action. They said, wait, I want a vengeance here. Thought too long. That is tilting. That sucks. I don't know what to do with that. I think, Ian, that's a really, really, really good point of how that thing is really awkward. I do know a lot of people had to play like that around Clan Vengeance. They would put a card on the table without looking at it and say like, are you going to use it? But as soon as they say no, I don't think they should be able to use it anymore because now you're spending a click and thinking about it. That's so weird. The one op situation that feels like it lands in this territory is ZF, Malapert, Sansan stuff. I think it lands in that territory just because it's, unintuitive and formalizes another part of the rules query, but I don't think it's anything to do with the exact like rules discussion of information. But yeah, Thomas, it's hella weird. Op has different rules issued from OBP accessibility, searching for -1, expose interactions, SZF scoring, but becoming illegal to score mid-score. Yes, I've seen that. Reconstruction contract requiring a legal target. Yeah, there's a lot of issues with that, but I don't think that's exactly this. On that note, Yusengren, can you fail to search for a -1? Because I think that showed up during Eternal, and I think Onion was like mentioned you could do it, but I didn't have time to ask. If they said yes, can I take my first click? They gave up the window. That's frustrating. Yeah, I think if they say I'm not going to pop it, they cannot ask to pop it because they're basically giving you the ability to spend your click because they can only use abilities up to your click. So yeah, I think that if there was a judge, they were in the wrong, unfortunately. There, Ian. This conversation is hurting my brain. Isn't it fun though? You can search for a -1. Oh, so cool. What's X? X is 0. I'm starting to wonder if requiring players to use a click tracker, with most do anyways, helps a little bit here. It definitely helps. Like, I think a lot of players also click track their opponents, which I think is healthy and good, and you should be doing it. I do not click track. The game that I want to click track more of is Arkham Horror, the card game, because it's hard playing Rogue sometimes. On the other hand, Ob brings the joy of Shaper BS to corp players everywhere, so who's to say it's bad or not? No, we're going to defend Op forever. Like, Op is Formicary, and I'm still defending it. Okay, last one. A runner makes a successful run on a remote server and accesses the first face down in a remote and accesses an Anoetic Void. The corporation player then calls a judge and says, I forgot I needed to res my Anoetic Void before the run was successful. What should the judge do? Wow, 70% say that. Leave the board as is. The new OPP recommends the corp be allowed to unwind provided the MNeMiC void was card access. Technically, yes, but this is the weird thing is where like in theory they could have got information if after they passed the last ice they like simul chipped in an imp or some nonsense. I think there's some situations where there's implicit information gained here. Now, if you ask me, if someone forgets to res their MNeMiC void, it's probably because they just goofed up the timing. Again, this is probably a bigger issue at lower tables and higher tables. And I do think the majority of people talking about this, or maybe myself and some people I've reading in the chat, do suggest that they will hold different standards to high table play and like casual play. Casual play, yeah, res your MNeMiC void. High table play, maybe not. Sounds like you're narrowing the design space a lot for the sake of making a take-back framework. James, yeah, maybe. I think that's something that you need to keep in mind when you're designing cards. In general, I don't think that the game should be designed around the take-back framework. That is for sure. But I think more so that if the take-back framework is going to be cogent, that probably is not the word I want here. If the take-back framework is going to be like rigid and bulletproof, there's going to be a lot of things that they need to solve when it comes to this implicit information thing. But yeah, I don't know. I don't. Okay, look, barring the take-back framework, I think you can throw Spark in the toilet. I don't think. Okay, I think free lunch can go far away quickly. But that's regardless of the framework thing. I don't click track, but I've been trying to get into the habit. I just don't have click trackers that I'm happy using. Right? Like I don't know. I've never had a system of click tracking that's felt good. I think the best that I've seen is Erin flipping those, like, she has those cubes from some game. They're chunky and fun. But there's no system that, like, makes me excited to do it. Like, you buy nice credits, but do I want to slide something slightly up and down a table? No, I think I want an abacus. I think I want a one-line abacus that has 4, and then I can put a divider in there. It has 4 on one side, 3 on one side, and I can click them left and right. We want a one-line abacus with a biotic labor cube I can insert. Stab Tabby, how's it going? We're talking about rule stuff. Don't play this card, please. What about Beth? Cube we insert. We insert a cube. Or if there's Beth, we flip it upside down and you become a corp. And then we just keep spinning it. Please, don't bring up Formicary. I won't know what to do with my abacus. I'm playing a 4P campaign right now of Arkham, and click turn tracking is so key. Click tracking in Arkham, what I'll usually do is I have that Orbit's character unique click tracker. I only have 1 of each. I think I do have 2 rogue ones, and I'll flip that when I'm using their once per turn abilities. But then it's oh boy, dice. I honestly, it's hard. Click tracking in Arkham's hard for some reason. The thing about click trackers is that they're great if you always remember them, but if you use them and forget them, they kind of make the situation worse. They really do. If you're not consistent, they make it worse. I have 0 input on card design and support OPP, and honestly, the easiest thing to do is reduce the amount of takebacks that allows more cards. Yes, exactly. Yeah. The less takebacks, the more cards we have. I agree. It's all a balance. Shortcut versus rigid structure that takes days, and design borders versus rule play problems. Yeah, this is not something that came up in the article, but this is different when it comes to top tables with casual play. But like my mentality is I want casual play to be as casual as possible, where people do not feel and stress that they need to like really make sure they're doing every single turn and surgically like accurate, that it adds 20 minutes to the game. Right? Like if someone makes a quick misplay, be like, oh, sorry, I was meant to play hedge fund before I install something, right? Like, I'm like, yeah, of course. At top tables, different story, probably. I wish I could just use my phone like Yu-Gi-Oh! Oh, for click tracking. Yeah, neat. Some people have made boxes. I think they're not allowed. I'm actually getting the habit of using a notebook for clicks. That also lets me track some missed triggers. Oh, cool. Like you write a list down of things that you've messed up, and then at night when you're in bed, when you're trying to go to sleep, you look at the list of your personal failures. And you look, I said that wrong. You look at your personal failures. Speaking of personal failure. Digital stuff banned? Yeah, you can't do that no more. Shout out to Andre who built a good one. I believe there's a phone app for Android. Cheers. Yeah, that's a funny sentence. Notebook sounds amazing. Does it slow you down much? I think we're going to see a renaissance. Maybe renaissance is not the word because we really haven't seen it yet, but I think we're going to start to see more and more players who do note tracking. Shout out to Bridgman, who I think is like the big player who's still like, who is note taking. And I think you see the way he note takes is actually very clever. But I think note taking is just underutilized. And I think you're going to see players who are just like too good to note take. And you know what? I think you look stupid. I think you should be taking notes. I think you really should be. If you want to take yourself seriously, you have to write stuff down. I don't have to write stuff down. It's like a log vault in there. I keep forgetting the runner gets 4 clicks, lol. Because of the way I learned the difference between who gets that amount, my brain keeps insisting both players 3 clicks instead of 4. Yo, Stab, what a lot of people do for that is that they use a 4-click tracker for runner and corp, and the corp's mandatory draw, they just use a click for it. So if you do it like that, you can imagine both sides have 4 clicks. It's mandatory draw and 3, and then, you know, 4. Don't play Bionic Labor. I had a mechanical click tracker. It felt so good to use that I never forgot to use it. Since I lost it, I began losing track of clicks way more. How is yours? I want like you know, those like kind of heavy kill switches that have like good click to them. Like I want those. I want like that on a board. They go click, 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 and it's going to light up, and it's going to be a bespoke, expensive thing. That's how I learned. Oh, fantastic. How does Bridgman note take? Bridgman note takes from what I've seen before, and you can see a bit of this on, I think, Rosenheim when he's playing in the German Nationals. You see it on camera. But he will write down every card he's accessed, and then once he sees that card, he'll cross it out when he's playing runner. That's at least the minimum I've seen. So if he runs HQ and accesses a hedge fund, he'll write down hedge fund on the paper really quickly. And then any card that he sees, he will write down. I think on top of that, you can always like put a check mark next to an ice if you haven't seen it yet, but cards have been installed after that as like a probability that ice is on the table. But I think at a minimum, every time you access a card off R&D HQ or cards in remote servers too, if you're worried about the memory aspect of it, you can write that down. But I think that's fantastic. And as soon as he sees the first hedge fund, he crosses that off because it's as good as if that one was played, even though it's not always that one that's played. Do people take note of every single move chess style? No, they don't. I've never seen that. No, I've never seen that at all, unless you talk about looking at the Jinteki.net log, in which, yeah, people do read that. But no, I've never seen anyone record to that heavy amount. You should probably, right? Like, that's strictly better. Oh, yeah, you want to talk about another card I'm going to remove for rules reasons? Kakarembo. This is an awful card. This card should never have been designed. Apologies if I have really, really strong hot takes on this one. Should never have been designed, because this card says that your opponent should be note-taking all the time. All the time you should be note-taking. Because if I have 9 cards in archives, and then I play Kakarembo, and I trash 2 cards from HQ, and then I run archives, and then I have to remember what was in there and what wasn't in there, and my opponent doesn't just tell me, that's a huge amount of information I've lost. When I got 100%, and it's never 100% if they trash a card, but like largely know what's advanced card, and I don't, this card should not exist. This card should go right in the bin, 100% agree. Love to hear that. This is awful. This incentivizes, this is actually like very clear game theory reason, I don't fully know what game theory is, that you should be recording every single card in archives in every single game you play. Because of the existence of this one card that sees no play, you should. If you take yourself seriously and you want to like sweat every single edge. Awful. Don't like this. Fun, exciting card, but like out of gameplay, no. Please no. Rook to Eli 1. That's very funny. I mean, I have ADD, so I do it for everything. I just make a little grid with a column for each click and a column for every key trigger. Whoa. Just do a check mark for each click and also check for the miss trigger. Dear, if you would be cool to show a photo of that at some point, just like a screenshot of what your notes look like, I'd be very fascinated because that sounds kind of cool. Kakarembo is an awesome card. I understand that people like this card, but like in terms of rules, no. Please no. Don't make a card that makes me want to note take every card in archives. Yuck. It was a custom mechanical board with 2 rows of 7 keys that either got stuck on low, medium, or high heights and made a good click sound. Oh, the good click sound's so important, isn't it? The runner could inspect archives before resolution? Technically, no. Technically, the runner could not. Your opponent could let them, but they could not. Same way is when Levy AR Lab Access was played like way back in the day, most players allowed the corporation to see the archives, or sorry, the heap shuffle before. There is no rules that is necessary, but the only other way to deal with that is to ask for the heap between every click. So people were kind enough to allow people to see the heap 95% of the time. I've never seen anyone refuse before a levy was played. That doesn't mean they had to. Luckily, people are very kind, but this is technically a similar card in which it was in your best interest to note take. You couldn't back in the day, but like this is technically a similar thing to Kakarembo. Kakarembo though is just like the one card difference is more important than like if they shuffle 36 cards back with Levi and you missed 2 of them, you'll be fine. But Kakarembo, the one card is the difference. That's usually the most important. Flip archives facing down operation for eternity. No. Hey Mela, it's 4:40 a.m. Any advice on getting a better brain for myself? I did read the survey breakdown, quite like the explanation, assuming that's being read. Yes, that's being read. 4:40 a.m. Yo, good morning. How's it going? A better brain. No, you're doing good. You're doing fine. I wouldn't worry about it. Thanks for joining. Kakarembo is one of the Ashes cards that feels the most fan project-y. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I see kind of what you mean. Shouldn't the runner be able to read that in the same meta window that they would read the card itself? Nah, it's resolving. There's no formality to there. It's you play it, it resolves. There's no timing to be like, hold on, let me read that. Nah, it's gone. You flipped it. It's really ugly. The thing is, like, the majority of people would play like that say like you can see it, and then hopefully again you brought a pencil and paper, but technically no. There's no timing window, but in the middle of operation resolving. Next time I play an in-person game, probably PAX, I'll send my notes. It helps a lot because I get frustrated how I miss triggers. It also makes a little game log. That's so cool, dear. Yeah, good luck at PAX. If you want to share that, that's amazing. There is structure. Tell me more, Yasengrin. I'm actually a little surprised that Netrunner is the one game where you can't freely look at trash, but it does still make sense. You can look, no, Stab, you can look freely at trash. You can. You can look at face-up trash whenever you want, either side. You ask for permission because it's not your property, like physical property, but they can't refuse it. And also face-down cards, you can always ask to see how many are in there. But no, you can fully look. Have you considered accelerated diagnostics into Kakarembo? Yo, Kakarembo into Sansan, into Regenesis. Now we're playing with fire. Yeah, I would AD Kakarembo all the day. The biggest nerf, the custobiotics. How can you resolve a card before your opponent even knows what it does? Trust system? I honestly don't know, but I don't know. Are you saying that face down archive card is a bad piece of game information what cards should not be interacting with? No, I don't think face down archives is a bad thing to be interacting with. I just don't think there should be a burden for someone to memorize a list of 15, 16 cards. I think the fact that we're interacting with archives is totally fine, but I don't think there should be a game which is like, here's 17 cards, one is missing, which one? Like, that is not something 90% of the player base can do. And I think they can do that by note-taking tediously. And I don't think you want to have a card that encourages that behavior, because then the first order optimal thing is to note take every single card that goes in archives. And that just slows the game down for this one card that is not worth caring about. Didn't realize that. Oh yeah, Stab, super important to constantly be checking archives. In standard, like there's some big reasons, like there's Anarch breakers that get installed straight from archives. Or from heap, excuse me. Yeah, always look. See what threats are in and out of the game. It's very important. All right, I think he's saying, no, he didn't answer. Events go into play before they resolve. Oh, yeah, they hit the table, they resolve. They're not in the archives when it's resolving. Not that this does, and this RFGs. But like, you can just start resolving it. Like, I don't think you have to be like, here's my archives. You can just be like, sorry, my click is going now. I'd put Levy and Kakarembo in different boxes because of the face down flip. I would argue that shuffle cards into stack with their face up has open knowledge of what face cards are shuffling in. Sort of Crore, because if they're face up, because the thing is, you're right, the face down cards in archives or the cards you add to archives, those are hidden. But the face up cards in archives, that's kind of like Levy, isn't it? I just think in Levy, it's not that important to know like every single card. In this, you need to know every single card if you can. Wouldn't an easier change to be just modify the turn keyword to allow a phase where the runner looks at the cards? It's not so much that there isn't a phase to look at cards. It's more so that this card wants you to always know every single card in archives. And I just don't think that's tenable. Outside of tedious note-taking, I don't think it's tenable. It's nothing to do with the timing of the card. It's more so, even if there was not timing, like say that every single opponent was kind enough to show you their whole archives before they flip this, you would still have to pull out a paper and pencil and write down like potentially a nightmare scenario, like 15 cards. Then if you ran archives again, you'd have to like double check and be like, okay, this one's accounted for, this one's accounted for. Like, that's not fun. That's nothing. I don't know. It's not so much the timing. Even if they showed you archives all the time, this would still be not fun. The play/install timing is a beautiful new part of the rule structure. How new is that? Every game I bring a homebrew deck of mine, I get a look at so much trash for free. I've been since 2014. It's easy. I think even if the runner gets to look at the cards before you flip them, you still have to do a bunch of noting. Yeah, exactly, Sandra. That's the point. Even if you saw every card, even if they were kind enough to show you the deck, which archives, which I don't think they have to. I don't think they have to. It would still just be an absolute mess. I agree in principle, even though there's only a handful of cards in archives that would be relevant. I do think that this argument that I'm very passionate about, in terms of actual mattering, very low. But in terms of principle, very big. I fight. Dumb question. No such thing. Are there any archetypes that just machine gun fire your stuff into trash for effects/buffs? Yes and no. technically back in the day, this was a very important card, Accelerated Diagnostics, which is just rip 3 off the top of the deck, play them if you can, sort of. Then, of course, Power Shutdown was the other one, which is rip cards off the deck and hopefully trash something. These worked really well in a very unintuitive way, but not so much. Barring, what's the keyboards one? I never know the name of. What's the Anarch card that like rips 10 off your deck? Because yes. I really enjoyed the mind games you can have with Face Down Archives and Kakaramba-esque effects allow the corp to reset that mind game. I don't like it. Hey, APX DMN. Startup is really missing some archive interaction despite how many ability involves archives. Yeah, I'm like assuming obviously we're gonna see new Jinteki cards, and we got a lot of cards that work in that play space in the first half of the new set. The Borealis thing. The Midnight Borealis, I said it right. That I'm pretty sure I would be very surprised if we didn't see something that didn't have the word archives meaningfully on it in the next set that's coming out in a couple weeks. Isn't the not knowing a thematic element of the cards something to keep secrets? Yeah, I think it is. And that's the idea, is that as soon as they discard a card from hand, you 100% don't know, especially if they discard 2 cards. But I still think the right play is to always take every card in archives on a fundamental level. And I don't like that. If the corp starts resolving CAC before the runner can read archives, they're blatantly cheating. But I agree that the cross-checking is a problem design space. Wasn't there in the FFG designer not that new? Power Shutdown was doing that, but usually when once you fire that card. Frantic Coding, thank you. Yeah, this is the closest to it's Frantic Coding. Frantic Coding was a very playable card at top levels for a while. You just rip the top 10 off your deck, install one of them for a program -5. And Anarchs generally don't care about ripping 5. Technically labor rights as well. Also to some extent, like, what's it called? Guinea. Is that what's called? Guinea pig? Also works, but it's a different thing. Kakaramba creates a minigame, which is which card is missing from this picture. It's a bit tedious, but I'd be happy to just tell the runner if there's a card they saw or something to face down the next time they run archives. Yeah, Ian, that's the way I would play it. Like, I wouldn't expect the runner to play that game unless I'm like feeling very devious or I'm playing against Pat. But like 9 out of 10 times, I would just say this is the one that's missing. But that's the idea. It's a tedious minigame that note-taking fixes. And that sucks. Max, Anarch, and IG. Oh yeah, Max. Okay, wait, there's a lot. Max was the big one. Rip 2, draw 1. Amazing. 1 Worlds before she rotated. Industrial Genomics. If you want to watch the Eternal format, you can see a whole bunch of this. Cards and Archives give you increased install costs as long as they were face down. Freelance coding contract? Yeah, I guess so. But that was more from hand than from deck. Playing against Pat. Yes, Pat and I will play main against each other. Severnius by any means? Oh no, but that technically it was from that's from Grip. That's different. Ian, I think the problem with the corp should tell runners that you trash cards from HQ as well. Yeah, as soon as you trash cards from HQ, you don't have to tell them. I was wondering why the OP rules all ended with unless you're playing against Pat. Yeah, it's really strange, but he's been having a really hard year, and it looks like we're not letting up on him. It'll be fine. Maybe there's going to be a third, like, competitive environment, casual environment. You're playing against local celebrity Pat. No takebacks. Anywho, I'm really glad that we could have this conversation. I think this article is really cool. Oh, we didn't. If instead the court player called for judge from the game to Desperado. Sorry, okay. No, we finished this one. This is kind of interesting, ain't it? I think it's kind of cool. I haven't read what the repair sequence is. I will read it at some point on my own. I think this article, whether, obviously this is going to be a learning situation. There's more stuff to talk about. I think it's very obvious, but the way that this is presented, but I think this is incredibly well written. I like that that's put out. I was reading through this and I was like, oh yes, this is very good. I like that you explain why this is fantastic. And then this happened and I was like, oh my God, Eric's going to love this. And then we got to read through this to see like, what is going on here, y'all? 5% more people were like, no. This is great. So good work, y'all. I think it's fantastic. I'm going to read through this, but this is always going to, if you have any feedback, hit up, there's the Null Signal team there. There's a link or something in here. Other rules, other news, excuse me. It's also wild that every other pad just knows it's not them. The rules are referring to everyone just knows which pad is the target. I don't think that's entirely true. I know what you're getting at. And I think there's like 2 or 3 big pads in Netrunner. And sometimes people just say Pat, and it's sometimes a different Pat. And it's awkward because then you ask, like, what Pat are you talking about? Like, Rotom is Pat, right? No, what's Rotom's name? It's not Pat, is it? Yeah, yeah, Rotom's Pat too, and sometimes he's called Pat in conversations. I'm like, I don't think you're thinking about who I think you're thinking about. I'm pretty sure you sang when we played Eternal. I think you played what you said was Pat's deck, and I think I thought, and I think Scorpy Pat thought it was his deck. I don't think it was his deck. I think it was a different Pat, and that was really awkward for Pat. Breakdown was lovely. I initially missed the survey breakdown. I was already pretty happy with the article. Yeah, the breakdown was just the icing. I was so excited to see what the breakdown is because it's not so much to be like, oh, these people are wrong, these people are right, but it's really important to understand people who are playing this game. And also it said in the article that the majority of respondents to the survey weren't even at Worlds. Like 60% of the respondents to the survey were just players in Netrunner. And that's fine. Obviously not everyone can get the Worlds. It's not like your opinion matters more if you were in Toronto for a weekend. But it was Scorpy's deck. Get out. Wait, really? Which deck? He was like, I had no recollection of what that deck was. Are the other big Pats also referenced as the low villainous crackling bog witch Pat? Sorry, I meant renewed Yu-Gi-Oh! Hero Pat. I don't know enough about Yu-Gi-Oh! To know where that's going. Eternal is on here. I think that was the end of the news segment, and then I just had these cards up. Woo! It's getting warm in here. Excuse me, I read that already. So happy Thanksgiving, y'all. How's it been hanging out with families and whatever? Who is this alleged Pat? Alleged Pat is tune in next week. You'll see alleged Pat, Tabby. I think that's usually correct. Yeah, probably tune in next week. And Pat will be here. He's a friend and a local celebrity. I don't know what to do. I was like really convinced that today was going to be a very slow day. I think technically it is a bit slow. It is, again, American Thanksgiving. So a lot of folks are doing stuff that I was just going to sit through and go through this. I'll be honest. So these are the MNeMiC cards. There's 1,024 of them. And I just haven't looked at all of them. And I kind of wanted to go through and review all of the cards on like a very surface level. And I was convinced that yesterday I would just wake up in the morning and put on the stream and just, and the heroes to us all. And I would just stream and just go through as many of these as I could. Unfortunately, I'm working on a contract and I was currently waiting feedback. And once the feedback is through, you enact the feedback. And I got my feedback this evening, which I didn't think I would do. So I cannot do it tomorrow. Do you all want to do a Trash-or-Busto real quick? MNeMiC doesn't know we're doing this. Not that we have to ask his permission, but you want to just do a quick Trash-or-Busto? We got like maybe an hour left. We can do this, right? This is I'm doing it. I'm doing it. You do have to make sure that I don't spend too long at any individual card because I will. Why is this not? How many cards? 1,024. In an hour, we can do every Anarch card. I don't even know. Okay, here we go. Ready? Okay, so how do you play Trash-or-Busto? It's very easy. You basically say trash or you say busto, and then we have a ruling here. Now, because of chat delay, you are going to some extent, maybe have to say like loco or Lloyd trash, Lloyd busto, just because if we go super fast, we might not be able to keep up. Good background noise, Law. I'll take it. That's all we want to be around here is just background noise. We're doing it. Licensed neurosurgeon local Lloyd Anarch Gmod 4515, so you can get this on DJ Fenris. We're going to talk about this being in standard as of date. I'm 50-50 on this. The first time you suffer core damage each turn, make a run and bypass the first encountered dice. 2 clicks to remove a core damage. I think 2 clicks to remove core damage is not necessary. You would probably never hit that button. I think if you're hitting that button, something very wrong is happening. That's just way too slow in general. I think taking a core damage to run and bypass the first dice is potentially quite powerful. This feels kind of like a blackmail deck. Obviously, you can only take so much core damage, but generally playing hand-sized cards is going to be overall better than this. If you play this with Obelisk and play Tag Me, I think that's a very good ability. I think this is quite good. The difference is how consistently can you take core damage. There's no card that can give you core damage, but if you play Obelisk Tag Me, this seems good. I think that actually might be better than Asa. Yeah, I don't know. I think this is quite good. We're going to also find out cards through this, but I think this is actually not like if our extremes are Trash-or-Busto, I think this is Busto. Just for reference, the first set of playtesting Trash-or-Busto takes 1 hour to do 1 cycle's worth of cards. Yeah, that feels about right. I don't know. I like this one. I think that's a strong effect. I think S's effect is less likely to be impactful. I think this is an impactful effect on every game and just about every board set. That's not the same you can say about Asa. Okay, spare parts, Spence and Spartacus. Okay. Identity Cyborg, interrupt. When you would install Cybernetics, choose one, draw 2 cards, gain 2 credits, ignore damage taken by installing it. So the bottom one is probably worse than draw 2 cards. Just about all the Cybernetics only do 1 meat damage. I think very few of them do 2 meat damage. So you generally want to do the top 2. How many Cybernetics? That's going to define if this is good or not. I think a lot of the Cybernetics that we've seen are not inherently synergistic, so that seems kind of rough. But depending on how many Cybernetics are in this set, this could obviously pretty good. It's whenever, that's pretty scary because every card you install draws 2 cards, so you're technically always ahead. You are going to be taking some amount of meat damage, but potentially Busto depending on how good the cybernetics are. That effect is a rules nightmare. What if you take the damage during a run or on the corpse turn? Oh yeah, it's a big point, Raketa. That's absolutely absurd. This should not exist because you could take it during a run. Yeah, you're right. That has to be changed. What are we looking at? It's a 1,000 card. Yeah, Eric, 1,000 card fan design set. That's exactly it. You can, the link is here if you want to get it. You can print it or make playing cards it yourself. Point out any of the rules things too, because you're right. Loco is unattainable with the rules. A Maverick, hey, that's me, Netcaster. Identity Gmod 4515. When your turn begins, you may trash a card from your grip or the top of your card of your stack and place a virus counter on a piece of ice. It has -1 strength for each hosted virus or virus counter. How you doing, eh? I've seen this one before. This ability is like very comparable to something like an Ice Carver. It's very comparable to Null. To some extent. Now, Null is not a very good thing you want to compare yourself to because throwing a card out to get -1 strength is not great. Now, this can in theory stack, right? You may trash a card from your grip. The top card of your stack, though, is kind of interesting. And place a virus counter on a piece of ice. So virus counter on ice can be purged. There is a big chance that this does nothing. This seems kind of comparable to Null, and there's not that much it interacts with well. In terms of like lowering the strength of ice, it's like the damage you can do by installing a single Ice Carver or getting a single leech down is very comparable to this. They can also purge through this. I think this is actually quite bad. I was about to pop up before I realized the virus goes on ice, not a virus card. Yeah, if it's on a virus card, I'd do it. Yeah, trashing for stack is like where this gets interesting. From your grip, forget it. But yeah, I think that's that one's gonna be trash. Apologies, MNeMiC, for calling your cards trash. It's trash on Busto. Look, there's gradients to this. Abigail, Life Teacher, 2 Link, 4515. Okay. Natural. As a click, reveal 3 cards from your stack, add 1 to your grip, and trash the others. Use this ability only once per turn. When your turn ends, you may flip his identity. So say we didn't flip here. We have 2 Link. As a click, we can reveal 3 cards from your stack, add 1 to your grip, and trash the others. Use this ability only once per turn. So it's a click to draw 2, but the corporation can trash 1 of those cards. That's really good. That's busted, right? Like you just show 3 paper clips on turn 1. You have a paper clip. That's obviously very good. Let alone you click for 2 card draw. You can only use this once per turn, but like I feel like you're more often going to get situations where you show like 2 sure gambles and like a steel skin scarring. Technically that works. Steel skin, yeah, because it gets trashed. Yeah, this seems really good. What's the flip side? Identity Natural. As a click, remove up to 6 cards from your heap from the game. Gain 1 credit for every 2 cards removed. Use the ability only once per turn. So if you flip, removing cards from your heap generally doesn't matter, barring like your heap breakers currently in Anarch, and we don't know the set. Yeah, even without flip, that's busted. Like 2 Link on its own could be considered busted, but that's a 4515 with 2 Link and an ability to draw tutorable cards from your deck as long as you have 3 of from them. That seems pretty busted. Now, if you have any sort of bin recursion, like you don't care, sometimes that's kind of like getting your max, like it's basically making a max trigger, but for a click, and you draw more of it and you can choose the cards. That's inherently gonna be busted. Even this side of the card you don't need. This seems like way above curve. The idea is Blue Moose, but very, very slow and requires a click and doesn't pay out as well. Yeah. No, that's busted. The backside doesn't need to exist. How dare you say it doesn't matter removing cards from the bin? What keep Blue Moose perfectly balanced? All right. Aryan the Purifier, 0 Link 4515. Whenever a successful run on Archives ends, remove up to 2 cards in Archives from the game. Okay, so this is built-in Archives interface ×2. Now that ability on its own is actually kind of useful. It's not something I'd build play an ID for unless there's some really degenerate recursion. Recurring in Netrunner is currently kind of in an okay place right now, where removing cards from Archives is not that important. Now again, we don't know the rest of the set. The first time each turn a successful run on HQ ends, the corp trashes a card from HQ if Archives is empty. Okay, that's interesting because now you have like a goal. Now this is when the run ends on HQ, so it's a bit less powerful than before the run because then your access gets better. And then finally, the first time each turn a successful run on R&D ends, the corp trashes the top card R&D if Archives is empty. This is interesting. This is actually a really cool design. There's ways to fight against it. You're probably not going to work out too well because you have to spend clicks running Archives, which is generally not good. So you're going to need ways to get value runs out of Archives. Again, rest of the set we don't know, but just like a Leech or Dreamnet kind of gets you there. There's some decks that don't put a lot of cards. Like if they don't have a lot of events, Archives can get emptied. Yeah, it sounds like Alice Merchant with extra steps. I think that's totally true. You have 5 cards fewer. You have that archives recursion hate if you want to. I think I'd be excited to play this, but I don't think it seems incredibly powerful. Just install Virtuoso, hit everything. This is a classic, supposed to be a big deck jank, but in fact it's just gas. Yeah, in terms of the 2 that we saw before, yes, I think that's exactly it. This is fun. I'd play it. Probably not very good. Brand, security consultant, Zero Link, Cyborg, Gmod, click host the top card of the stack face down on this identity. Ice are encountered with -1 strength for each card hosted on this identity. Trash hosted cards whenever the core purges. Okay, that's interesting. This is very similar to the MNeMiC card. So you're basically trading the top card of your stack into -1, but this is way more efficient than MNeMiC by like a mile, right? Like MNeMiC, you have to get the cards, the virus counters on ice. Maybe you have other things that care about virus counters on ice, but this is every single ice for -1 strength. So you can click to make yourself an ice carver, and the corporation is probably not going to purge that. Is that good enough? Honestly, probably not, but that's not bad. If you spend 2 clicks on this, you have Ice Carver ×2, and that seems pretty meaningful because you can play the fixed strength breakers at just about any point. This actually might be really good, right? Because you can play, the fixed strength breakers, Cleaver, Buzzsaw, and then, I don't know, MNeMiC, and then you can just click this twice after they purge, and now all their 5 strength stuff gets through. This seems really good. The corp can, in current rules, purge if there are no virus tokens. Yeah, Eric, they changed that a long time ago. And by a long time ago, I mean like Null Signal era. Technically Nisa era at that time, but it's been around for a while. You can just purge for fun. Yeah, this seems fine. Seems quite good. With fixed strength breakers, this seems quite good. If this was only once per turn, I think that would balance it out a bit. So you can't just be like, oh, you purged, click, click, go. Because yeah, their 5 strength becomes 3 strength, and Anarch breaks every 3 strength really well. But who cares when you have endurance? All these IDs suck. Urla Wild, Solemn Virtuoso, Identity Cyborg Digital. The install and play cost of virtual cards is lowered by 1. Sounds good. The influence cost of virtual cards is lowered by 1. AI Icebreakers have +1 strength. I thought one of these sentences was going to be bad because I thought I was reading an Apex identity. I think this is fine. We should make it Busto. Yeah, I think that's actually fine to good. This, though, Urla Wild, the install place on virtual cards is lowered by 1. So this is entirely dependent on the pool of virtual cards. Virtual cards generally trend cheap. I think the most expensive virtual card that sees play, again, we haven't seen the set, is like DreamNet. The influence cost of virtual cards lowered by 1. That potentially can be disastrous. You get like just good free stuff. Interesting thing here is like you get what's it called for free? Hunting Grounds for free, which means if you build a pawn shop deck, you're in a good spot. Icebreakers AIs having +1 strength. Does that actually matter? Like Amakua coming in at 1 is nice, but it's not the most important. Can we bring back data folding? Yeah, stuff like that would be really important. Like, can we bring back crowdfunding? This just seems like all gas. I'm so surprised that none of this is a downside because like this reads like an Apex ability. I still think that like it might not be the best thing you can do because it's card pool dependent. Oh, companions for free is cute too, but the companions, at least you got to watch out because some of the companions actually want to install things. This seems it's on the Busto side of Trash-or-Busto. Because the Tech Priests of Mars or the Deptus Mechanum are supposed to loathe AI. This ruins the Warhammer lore. Oh man, I visit Grimdank every once in a while. Base strength is a really influential stat. Yeah, I just don't know if there's anything that cares about that right now. Like Amakua, obviously. Mayfly coming in for 2 saves you credit, but it's not the most important thing. Would even play if bad for the art? Yeah, this art is very different than anything else. Happy, go home, super scrabby. This looks like it comes out of Borderlands. Identity natural. When a successful run on archives ends, you may host 1 non-agenda card access on this identity, max 3 hosted cards. The corp cannot res or play copies of cards hosted on this identity. Trash hosted cards on the corp purchase. This ability should, so I was designing a card in my criminal set that did something like this, that after you accessed a card, you could keep it hostage and then they could not play or res other copies of that unless they played like a cost, kind of like Pad Tap. I think that's cool. I do think the run on archives part of this card probably isn't necessary. I think this card can only host 1 card, and mainly if they host more cards, you feel better about purging, but I like an ability like this that prevents reses or plays, and it can grab 1 card hostage, and then the corp has to like pay for it. Like either they pay you and then like 2, and then they get the card back and you gain their money. I think this ability is interesting. I think the archives bit of it like means that you could play around this really heavily, right? Like if you're a red level clearance deck, you just never play the red level clearance until you need to, or stuff like that. Like don't trash your ice. But with this with ice destruction actually can be quite mean. And that way it would play a bit like that There's that one, I think it's still a legal card, that says you can run archives and trash and ice you accessed. Border control not stopping zero strength AIs is definitely a breakpoint that comes up. Yeah, I think that's the biggest breakpoint that comes up. Influence free Caldera and Anarch sounds good. I don't know. How's it going, Ader? Like, it's one influence. You're not that excited about it, are you? This seems probably a bit restrictive, but I think this ability should exist on something because it's really fun. Running archives is hard, though. It's hard to make an archives run good. If you have ice destruction with this, though, and you can call your shots, it can be quite powerful. Trash on purge, meaning card goes back into archives, feels a bit prisony. Oh, that's true, though. You're right. If they purge, it just goes back into archives, and then you can just set it up next turn. That is actually a really big point about this. The way that would play out would actually kind of be rough. Wastelands is 2. Yeah, Hunting Grounds is 1. Wastelands is 2. Yeah, Hunting Grounds would be 0, and then Wastelands would become 1. I don't know how I feel about this. I think I need to play this. I do think that running archives generally is not a great thing to be doing. Alice Merchant be damned. But that's interesting. I do think the fact that the cards are actually like put back into archives means that this is a bit of a monster. I think this ability would be much more healthy if the card was accessed from central servers or installed on the table. But then what happens when the card is trashed? Like, I think it would have to be when a card is, because then this is really fun when it hits operations. I don't know what to do. Interesting. We played this one, Juniper tough as nails, 2 credits used during runs when a subroutine is fired. This seems bad until you see that there's a lot of support for this. And then I think that actually is kind of interesting. We played a deck like this that had a lot of support of when subroutines fire, good things happen. When you take net damage, good things happen, stuff like that. And I think that's actually kind of interesting. I don't think it's very good. And it feels like you're running through a lot of hoops to get a similar value to something like a Kiko. But I think you're getting compared to Kiko is probably not a good thing. IP block? Yeah, exactly, right? Like, that's where it gets cool. Like, cards like IP block, or like you run through border control, let them get credits. Like, that makes this interesting where you start making decisions on what things to break. I think this is a cool card. Immolation script, that's the one. Oh, stealth subtype Sage. I totally missed that. Stealth subtype on this actually incredibly changes the value of it. And I don't think that's necessary. Would make for some fun core plays, resing things early if there are doubles in archives. Yeah, technically, but then you can wait for them to run archives, so not exactly. Maybe RFG is better for the last one. It is, but then it becomes a much more powerful ability because you can remove any card you RFG from archives. Not that that's that important. Tithe? Yeah, Tithe. Oh, firing this, yeah. I think this is cool, and I know there's support for it. Okay, this is a Zellinger. Katya Levsha, crafty and resourceful. This is a Roughneck, if I'm not mistaken. Cyborg, 2 recurring credits to only for playing events. That seems really good. You may only have up to 10 non-event cards. Whenever a runner card is trashed, it is instead removed from the game. I'm really glad you addressed the art issue at the top of the video when you did it. Oh, about where the art comes from? Exactly, Astro Channel? Where the art comes from, I think it's really important. A lot of it is credited. Some of it, I don't know how much of it there's permission that's asked, and there's links to the artist's works. I think that's really cool. I don't think all of it's accredited, which is obviously unfortunate. I think classically from what I've seen too, like this art is a bit different than, like, in terms of a tone, I think than FFG or the Null Signal stuff. I think overall, like I remember the first draft I looked through it, I think a lot of the art I felt a bit more like male gazy overall than now. I think now it's a bit less than that. I don't know if you all agree with that part. It's good to dress, obviously an ambitious project. Yeah, it's really hard to get all the art together. I think it's really cool though. There's a lot of folks now that are doing more like alt art stuff when it comes to what's it called? When it comes to like reprinting. Somebody just did, I think, system update with like AI generated art, and that's a nice way to give projects like this you know, some stuff. Busto love shot. Thank you for hitting the love shot on that. For playing 2 no events, Busto. 10 non-event cards is very little. I do think there's some Ken Tenma decks that play like this, but 10 non-event cards, like how many of those are your breakers? Maybe one of them is your console, and then you can't play no resources. So I don't think that's very good. The 2 recurring credits is a lot, but Ken is very similar to this. It's basically kind of like 1 recurring credit, but it's not only an event, it's a run event. I think you can build a deck that this is compelling. I feel like the decks would probably get a bit samey. I don't know. I don't think this is the worst. The removed from game thing I don't think matters. I don't know if that matters. Kyoko, Nikita, Himaya, Schizoid, Panic. I don't know what that word means. That doesn't sound great. When the corp turn ends, if a card was not advanced this turn, flip his identity. So that should be a forced, right? When the corpse turn ends, if a card was not advanced, you become a criminal. I think that's the flip side. You cannot play or install criminal cards. All ice are encountered with its strength lowered by 1. It's definitely still a bit more gazy than I like, but definitely improved. Yeah, I think it's still a bit, it's improved, but I don't think it's exactly where I think I would love it. Okay, so the idea is if you're the Anarch, all ice has its strength included by 1, but if the corp does not advance something, you become the other side. Criminally insane. That is not a topic that I know Null Signal. Like, I think different words would be used maybe on this, but when the corpse turn ends, if a card was advanced this turn, flip this identity. You cannot install Anarch cards when your turn begins to give a credit. So a flip identity, interesting. The fact that it's attached to quote unquote mental stability, that's I think a harder sell for a lot of people. Is this a good ability? So if they're not advancing, you're making money, and if they're advancing, ice is lowered by 1. Seems good. Seems okay. So the idea is that you're setting up until you're running. If they advance a card, you're running. Not a lot of corp decks can force you to stay on one side or the other. It's not a lot of decks play like that. They don't have a lot of things that they can run. I don't know. This sort of ability, all ice are encountered with strength lowered by 1. We've seen that show up now in a couple cards before, and I think that's something that MNeMiC quite values, whether it's because there's certain ice that we'll see or icebreakers in this suite that actually really care about that. But on most board states, this, mind you, with the Anarch breakers can actually be pretty impactful in terms of credits, but not install criminal cards or not install Anarch cards on this side. I think that gets really awkward. It depends how you build your deck building, and I think that's going to be the biggest problem here, is that you're stuck on this side until you're not stuck. And you can actually have huge bricks of hands where you just can't play half of the cards in your deck. I don't know how the deck building works, whether you have more Anarch cards or criminal cards, you can build whatever you want. But that would probably be way more clumsy than the payoff for the card itself. So much work for Rizeki, yes, but ideally you're just Rizeki all the time and then you do this on top of your Rizeki. But I agree. I think the fact that you're going to have dead hands a lot probably makes this not worth it. Yeah, not being able to pay your cards is bad. Yeah, it seems pretty bad. I don't know how deck building works. Can you build start as one side? I have no idea. Luna Caldera, broadening the horizons, identity natural. This is an Apex character, right? Yeah, Respawn Entertainment. When you breach archives, you may remove one accessed card from the game. If the card removed is a copy of a previously removed card, you may shuffle one sabotage or run card from your heap into your stack. Okay, so this is another archives run card, but the payoff for this is so slow. I think this is just trash, unfortunately, because so you have to remove a card from the game, then you have to remove the same copy of the card from the game to get an ability for you to shuffle a sabotage or run card back in your heap in your stack, and then you have to draw it again. I don't love Harmony AR therapy. I've talked about this a lot on the channel, but like shuffling cards back into your deck on a non-tempo play just to be able to draw it to play it again later in the game. There's most board states and most games where it goes quickly that doesn't actually matter at all. I do not like this ability. I think this is the worst run archives runner we've seen so far. My brain 56K connection noises. Yeah, this is Horizon from what's it called? From Apex, isn't it? Yeah, if the card went back to your hand, it would be much more powerful, that's for sure. But like even getting this to fire is difficult. One link is nice, but then the payoff is just not powerful enough. Terra Allegra, we've played with this before. Enraged and Engaged. The first time each turn a card is trash from your grip, gain 1 credit or draw a card. I think we might have seen this as a whenever back in the day. This potentially is powerful. A card is trashed. So this literally, it's a card or credit. Like you could play this just kind of like Essa, and just whenever you take core damage, technically a card is trashed. Each turn, I don't know if there's ways to trash cards on the opponent's turn. Technically cards like Gachapon trash cards, right? This is probably fine, but this feels like, again, a lot of work just to get something similar to Hashiko. So you just need a lot of card support for this to be good. Yeah, Patchwork is quite good. You're right. Yeah, Patchwork is really quite good with this. I just feel like, isn't there a similar ability to this than Patchwork? No, there's not really. Yeah, this is probably fine. I think this would be fun. Gacha of RFGs, but it trashes a couple of them. In RFG some, it installs one and trashes the others. Yeah, this really does eat through net damage, right? Because if you take, like, you can't get punitive if you have 5 cards in hand. Yeah, that seems pretty reasonable. Yeah, oh, it's 0. This thing is so good. Yeah, with 0, this is really good. Yeah, you just need those ways to constantly damage yourself. 0 becomes really, really good. From your grip. So not the top of your deck, but that makes sense, right? Yeah, I think that's fine. That seems good. Busto. Benny Oraso, we saw this one before. I like this. I just love these kind of like middle of the road glue cards. I think when we saw this before, it was maybe a bit cheaper. I had 2 credits. You trash a card from your grip, draw 4, trash 1. So in some, you draw 2. You get to trash your cards. We're assuming that that's something you want to do anyways because you're playing Tara Allegra, or maybe you have some other reason like you're hitting your bin breakers. I think overall, the fact that this costs 2, you probably just play moshing over this any day of the week. You see less cards in terms of card advantage. Now, the fact that you break these triggers up, I love that so much. Trash a card, draw 4, trash a card. Yeah, trashing your steel skin to draw 6 with this is obviously like nice, but that's the same thing with moshing. And I think moshing is easier to play at 0 and it gives you credits. So you get to pick, you get to pick all of these. None of this is random. Besides the draw, those are random. Yeah. No, obviously it's good, Solomia, but like you can do the same thing with moshing, right? And it doesn't cost 2. Similar to moshing, you could probably consider playing all 4, 5, 6. You're playing Terra for sure. Break the system event, sabotage. Play only if you've already made a successful run on HQ. Run HQ. If successful when the run ends, you may spend a click to sab 3. So the idea is you can run HQ with a Chashtushka and sab 4, or you can run HQ twice, get 2 accesses and sabotage 3. Which one is better? The thing is, the deck is probably better if it runs all of them. Like the best thing you do is Chashtushka into break the system. But this is actually very similar to me than Chashtushka. I'm surprised that this doesn't say run archives, then run HQ, right? Because that like makes sense with a lot of the other design we've seen so far, and that encourages and makes the design of all the archives runners better. I think running HQ twice, especially, that's the thing, is if you're playing against a sabotage deck like Asa, you ice up HQ because you're expecting Chashtushka, so this is actually harder to get off. I think at the 1 cost, the trash 2, draw 4 is clearly better than moshing. If it cost 1, you think so? Draw 4, trash 1, like after you trashed 1, is obviously better because you can trash better cards. The fact that you don't make money off of those seems pretty substantial. Yeah, I don't know. Making money off moshing is kind of like half the battle, right? But I hear you. The fact that you trash 1, draw 4, then trash your worst to top of it is so much smoother to play. This is interesting. We don't see a lot of Chashtushka. I'm surprised this is double HQ. Bullheaded. Event priority. Play only as your first click. Make a run. When the run ends, you may suffer core damage to make another run on the same server. Repeat this effect. So why would you want to play this? To be able to deal with like Anoetic Void server over and over again. To be able to deal with border control over and over again. But if that's the case, you can only play it as your first click. Now, if you're dealing with upgrades, like you can always take core damage and you can play Light the Fire, which is a similar effect as long as you're caring about cards in the server. The fact that this is a priority makes it very, very difficult. I don't think there's a reason that this has to be a priority. You can technically take a bunch of core damage to flush out a daily quest and get a lot of money on it. I'm not sure why this needs to be priority. I think if it wasn't priority, it would always be kind of a niche effect. And I think some of the stuff it deals with is like other cards deal with it. Just seems like a worse backup plan. Yeah, but it's 1 influence and it's an Anarch. So yeah, it's kind of like a backup plan. Backup plan's great because you get through the stuff. This, you have to do this over and over again and you can repeat it. But we'll see if there's cards that care about you running the same thing or making a successful run multiple times. Trash head, more like... Yeah, I don't get it. Dare, make a run. If successful before accessing cards, gain 2 credits or draw 1 card per advancement token on a card in the root of that server. I told you I could make it in. Love it. I think this card would be more... yeah, if this was terminal, it'd be much more exciting. That's for sure. Priority... I hate priority cards. I think priority cards are way worse than terminal cards. Obviously, terminal cards end your turn. But I find priority cards sometimes are just as restrictive. You can't... 3 steps ahead is also priority, isn't it? I don't think you can. So cards like this are kind of niche. I don't know if we've seen other cards like this, like that care about accessing a certain thing in a certain order, like an advanced card. Now, if you can play these and people are doing install advanced, like if you dare into it and it's an NGO friend, like it's at least this costs 0. But if you dare into an agenda, it's a bit of a win more thing. In terms of win more, like people did not play Power to the People, right? Is this the card? And I think that's just a much better payoff in general, right? Access agenda, gain 7 credits. Now, you don't know when you're going to access again agenda. Obviously, this is a priority, but like this seems kind of like a similar idea. The thing is like there's more board states. The thing is like most advanceable cards are either agendas or NGO fronts, barring, you know, like, yeah, Cord and stuff like that. So I don't know. I think you'd be pretty hard pressed to play this unless you can go out of your way to advance cards yourself, because you could, in theory, like Queen's Gambit into Dare, as long as you don't trash the card. I just don't think that's tempo positive. Into the Depths is just better in this in almost all cases. Yes, but it's Anarch. But yeah, Into the Depths is very similar. Also, it doesn't have to be iced. The card that lets you take infinite core damage, if you have a way to abuse that. Oh, that's true, actually. That's actually the most meaningful part about this card, is that it allows you to take infinite damage. So this with like anything that cares about damage is actually really important. That's maybe why priority. As a big Urtica fan, I hate it. Yeah, it's a nice way to check Urtica. You just draw a bunch of cards. Yeah, that's weird. That's niche. Distracted Mind, event, quick hack. So we've seen it quick hacks before. And what we've seen from quick hacks, they're cards that you can play mid-run. They're generally a bit too expensive, I think. I think a lot of the quick hacks probably don't need the extra clicks spent into them, because that's the idea, that they're quick. We'll find out if that's the case. Reveal this card from your grip and pay a credit and lose a click. So the fact that this card costs a credit, you can't actually play it, from my understanding. You can only reveal this card. So the res cost doesn't actually play, right? Instance in my Netrunner? Yeah, I know. Reveal this card from your grip, pay a credit, and lose a click during a run to prevent up to 2 net damage and trash this card. So this is pretty terrible, because you are paying a card to prevent 2 net damage. So you're basically spending a card to save a card. There are so few board states where that matters. Maybe you really care about losing certain cards in your hand, that you're going to play this and you're going to lose this one instead of other net damage, but that's just not a huge advantage. You're losing a click and a card and a credit to prevent basically 2 net damage, which could have hit this card anyways. Yeah, so not really strong. And I think you'd have to invent a really weird use case for this to be good. Now, when we saw in a criminal deck that could produce quick hacks when they needed them, that's where this gets kind of more interesting as a one-of in the deck that stops you from dying at ridiculous circumstances. But yeah, it doesn't seem great. No, quick hack is a mechanic. Yeah, it seems to be a mechanic. That's all the quick hacks have this sort of format. You can use this anytime you take core to protect APOC in hand. It's only 2 net damage though. It's only net, so you can't stop taking core damage. And it's also during a run, yeah. It also doesn't say that the corp uses, which is interesting. So yeah, if you do something, but yeah, it's only net damage. Hard to evaluate that considering when you can summon the cards versus quick hack. That's another thing. It's just like, I even say that you could summon this at instant speed on any board state. Unless you can summon it from your deck, I don't think it's worth playing. That quick hack deck tilted me so much. Yeah, you could tell. You could really tell that you were you trying to figure it out, trying to draw into economy more accurately. Oh, my foot's asleep. Dumpster diving. Double run CD event, cost 2, and then 2 clicks, run archives. When the run ends, and if it was successful, you may install a card from your grip, lowering its install cost by the res or play cost of any card that was face down before you accessed. Okay. It's the same sort of problem as Whistleblower into Blown Out, where you add a card into your deck that costs as much to play as the card is trying to save. Yeah, kind of. So this is interesting, but it's very expensive. So you're paying 2 credits and 2 clicks to install a card, only lowering the res cost by potentially a lot. Potentially a lot. This needs to say printed. Like printed install cost? Yeah, so the retrieval run is not free, right? Wait, retrieval run's just 3. Wait, retrieval run's free, right? Yeah, retrieval run's free. Ignoring all costs. Oh my lord. Yeah, okay. Well, I think that's going to be a problem for this card. This is retrieval run. 1 cheaper, but more expensive, but then you still have to install a card and it needs to, yeah, okay. And you hate this from an OPP perspective. Trying to be nice and kind and upbeat while fuming at the deck, he succeeded, but at what cost? It was very funny. This is any card. Oh, hold on. Install a card from your grip, right? So it can be a hardware, it can be a resource. How much savings do you want to get on this card for it to be good? That you have to spend 2 clicks and also make a successful run on archives. Like, how much money do you need to save off this? Like, we could be playing retrieval run. We're generally not, because we're not playing expensive programs. But yeah, you couldn't jam your monolith. You could jam your monolith for maybe 3 costs cheaper. Because the question is, like, what's the res cost of any card that was face down before you access? Like, what are people throwing out? Some decks throw out their expensive ice if they're poor, and that's kind of the best case. So it feels a bit win more. If you trash ice, it's face up, so that's not going to work. If it's Stargate, it's not targeted. So sabotage kind of works. That would be kind of random though. But like on average, what's the res cost of face down cards or play cost? I don't know. It doesn't check any. It's lower by the play size of any singular card. So it's not like sum all the cards together. But the thing is, like, why would a hedge fund be in archives face down? It'd be because you sabotaged it. Yeah, 7 credits is when you hit easy mark values. That's the issue. Is like you need to hit a ridiculous number here. And maybe that works. Sangren, what was that anti card that you played a bunch of times where you were throwing out, but it was face up, so it doesn't work. But the idea is like, say that you install something, reducing its install cost by 7. So you spent 2 clicks, 2 credits, and probably got through ice. You install for free, so you only spend 1 extra click, but then you save. Because any saving you have to subtract 2 from. So I don't know. People aren't excited to play rigging up all the time. It's hard. It's hard. This is pretty restrictive. You'd have to hit huge savings. I don't know how consistently you can do that. And then you need an expensive target. Equivalents. Run Sabo, forfeit an agenda to make a run on HQ or R&D. If successful, you may force the corp to trash X cards from HQ or the top of R&D. Okay, it doesn't matter which one you run, which is funny. X is the number of agenda points on the forfeited agenda. Negative agenda points are still agenda points. Okay, hold on. So I can forfeit 2 points to force you to trash 2 cards from R&D. That's really bad. But we did see in the set there was a fair few negative agenda point cards. Now, and R&D. Oh, and thank you. So it's I can forfeit a 2 point and make you trash 4 cards. Now the HQ ones aren't random. So this is basically like Sabotage 4. So I can forfeit a Beal to give basically a Chastushka for 1 credit cheaper that I can run R&D. I would say that this is really quite bad. Oh no, if it's negative, you just get you get just like the integer number without the positive minus. So -2 is 2. Negative points, Glut Cipher. No, the way that MNeMiC has ruled in other cards is the -2 would be 2. So if there are guaranteed negative agenda points that you're seeing in just about every matchup, this becomes a card not only that's good because it allows you to forfeit an agenda, which there's not a lot of runner cards that let you do that, but also has a relevant ability. If that is the meta, this is probably a playable card. In the modern standard meta, if this card was just introduced on its own, you could forfeit a 3-pointer to do 6 damage. That's just not enough. Yeah, it's all dependent on negative agenda points. Otherwise, that's not a big enough payoff to like forfeit agenda. The thing too is you forfeit the agenda before the run starts. If you only forfeit the agenda if the run was considered successful so that you could not biff this thing, and also so you could play this to threaten the runner, like that you could like run R&D and pop a border control without you having to forfeit an agenda, that would make this much more powerful. I like abilities like this. Counter surveillance is very similar, that have a strong cost that you pay the cost when successful. I think that makes them way more easier to play. Terrorbrain, no, these are MNeMiC's custom cards. This is not the set that's coming out in a couple weeks. Yeah. Are there runner cards that give negative agenda points for cracked value? No, nothing currently. There's no negative agenda points. There's only 0 agenda points, and that's not in it anymore. Eventuality, play an event from your grip, lowering the play cost by 3. I really like this card. People don't like career fair as much as I do. People don't like rigging up as much as I do. I think this is quite cool. You have to be playing expensive events, but that's actually the one thing you can say about most decks. Most decks are running, Bravado at a minimum, Sure Gamble. There's a lot of that stuff that cost, 5 is expensive, 3 is pretty reasonable. Now you can only play this in a deck that has a lot of card draw because this needs to line up with something else, but I kind of like it. It's 3 credits. It's technically basically kind of akin to a hedge fund or a Sure Gamble because it's a click for 3 credits and you get to play an event as well. So that is kind of cool. I don't know if for a rules nightmare, playing 2 events in the same paid ability window seems a bit messed up, or for the same clicks, that probably can't exist because I don't know which one resolves in what order. Like, do you play this and then I think you'd have to say like play the next, I think you'd have to say gain a click, play the next event by 3, but then that becomes like a combo deck. So I don't know. I like a card like this. I think it's simple. Criminals got resources and Shapers got programs. Why not get events? This plus the 2 recurring credits ID means a Sure Gamble from 0. Yeah, but you can still do that anyways, right? Like you can play whatever gives you recurring credits for events. Yeah, mistake. I for an I. Okay. Priority Sabotage only is your first click. When this turn ends, if you made a successful run during your turn, sabotage X. X is the damage you have suffered during runs this turn. Remove this card from the game instead of trashing it. Ghost bad. Okay. So this is Plan d'Assault already did. Wait, actually did it? Because Plan d'Assault was a double. Oh yeah, you're right. Okay, so that's totally fine. Yeah, Solomir. We talked about the card that allows you to do infinite core damage as long as you can survive it, and that makes this okay. This kind of feels to somewhat like Salvage Vanitas Armory. Wait, isn't this just Salvage Vanitas Armory? Oh, it's only during runs, so it's not Salvage Vanitas Armory. But Salvage Vanitas Armory is like the only card that's banned in every single format. I don't know. It depends on the card suite. It's kind of hard to do this. Sabotage is less good than Salvage because it's not just rip off the top of the deck. But if you take like 5 damage in a turn, which is kind of difficult, you could definitely do it with that bullheaded thing. You end up doing a lot. Don't you have to dodge the damage? No, if you have enough card draw, like Spiricites, however you pronounce that, there's ways. Click with card draw. Imagine trying to fix SVA. Yeah, I don't think you can do it. Grainy phone quality means I can only hear, not read. Okay, so no, the damage doesn't have to be prevented. It says X is the damage you've suffered during this turn. So if you prevent the damage, I don't think you've suffered it. So you specifically cannot suffer it. Oh, Bullhead is also a priority. Yeah, you're right. Okay, never mind. Is it? Yeah, okay. Well, go. It says Dunwich. Why does it say Dunwich? Event, priority, run, terminal, prep. I saw one other card that was priority and terminal, and let me tell you, priority terminal has to be a really good card for obvious reasons. Run archives. When the run ends, if successful, end your action phase, and during each run on your next turn, trash all accessed cards. You may not steal agendas during your next turn. Okay. So this means that you forfeit an entire turn. You have to run successfully with archives, and then you get 1 turn to blow through everything. Hey, Diceborn, yeah, it's your next turn. Oh, it says text turn. Yeah, we're not going to comment on that. That's obviously not what it should be. But yeah, next turn. Trash all access cards. We have a card that's like this. Is this better than BAM? For the remainder of your turn, you place a priority. Whenever you access a card not in archives, trash it and suffer 1 meat damage. This is very, very comparable to BAM. BAM, you have to take damage. This one, you don't have to take damage, excuse me, but it's your whole dang turn. This is kind of interesting. If you had ways to bank clicks, this would be better because then you could like, you know, deal with a wide board or like go ham on centrals. I think this is way too big of a cost. I feel like if this was something kind of like, I don't know what you do with this. Like if you have something that's similar that allows, like this gives a whole turn for the runner to or corporation to prepare for it. I wonder if this had to be a priority run terminal. Maybe this could be just double terminal and that kind of is like just about the power level. I think that's a fun effect. And it gives the corporation 1 turn to like prepare for it. Just like that. What's that one with Hoshiko on it in the middle of the air? Mercs is the exact same thing as paparazzi for BAM CS. Oh, because you can prevent the damage. Yeah. Forfeit a turn gives the corpus free score window. Only sort of, but only if they've already started the score window, right? Like say I play this and then next turn you're like, oh, I can go install advance. I can go trash the agenda. I can't steal it, but I can trash it, which it's not a score window. Climactic Showdown. Yeah. Like if this played like Climactic Showdown, it kind of does. It's just, it's way more expensive. Yeah. I mean, priority terminal isn't so bad when the corpus sapping clicks with MCA. Well, yeah, if you don't have a turn. But yeah, I don't know. That's actually kind of interesting. I think that's probably on the weaker side though. Spending your whole turn is rough. At least if you have started turn triggers like Daily Cast or Zahya, all that sort of stuff, that's a bit better. Falling asleep on one of Savage these cards, then put all the careful double working. Anti-collective shutdown. Yeah, this seems pretty weak. I don't think you can forfeit your whole turn. The game is way too fast. Growth Spirit, trending, genetics. The first time each turn you play a virus card, you may place 2 virus counters on trending 3. So trending is the basically kind of, I think like the fate mechanic from Legend of the 5 Rings. When your turn begins, trash this card if it has power counters on it equal to its trending value. Place 1 power counter on this card. The card is not trashed when played. So basically it's in on trending 0 for the first turn, then trending 1, then trending 2, and then on trending 3 trashes itself. This is here for 3 turns. So for 2 credits, you play, it says whenever you play a virus card, you may play 2 virus counters on it. So it's unique, which is interesting as a unique event. But genuinely, I really appreciate putting these out, even if they're not my favorite designs. 100%. Yeah, I think it's sick. So this is like similar to, what's it called? Cookbook. Cookbook is only half the power. This is interesting because it doesn't last that long. How good are extra virus counters? People do play Cookbook. I think this card is actually really scary because 2 means that when you install viruses, it has 3 virus counters, which means things like the little snake there puts things to sleep, and that is potentially a problem. So I think this could be quite powerful. It gives you also a narrow window in turns where like you can start instant parasiting things, or I mean instant chiseling things. Give boat trending 5 before it sinks. Talking about these are so fun, even if we don't like a lot of design. That's why I was so excited to like do a set review tomorrow, because just like talking about the cards is so much more fun. Even if you don't think all the cards are like obviously slappers, it's 1,000 cards. They're going to be slappers in here. Cute mechanic probably could have just been a resource though. I think if it was I think if this was a resource, obviously we can just throw Cookbook out. And I think Cookbook is actually a pretty well-tuned card. And Cookbook adding 1 counter makes it actually really interesting because Tranquilizer doesn't automatically just blow up. And this makes it automatically blow up. I think this actually might be quite powerful. Trending 3 means it stays for 3 turns after it plays turns. So you can get 8 counters from this. Oh, it's only first time. Yeah, you're right. It only is first time. That's different than Cookbook. I think you have to work pretty hard for this. But I think there are board states where this is absolutely disastrous. Like this plus Cookbook means like your chisels are coming in at 4. I don't know. I think that's pretty good. Trending is a solid new mechanic. I like the idea of having cards to make more important. Yeah, I think trending was something that's suggested, not obviously these words, but like a way to deal with currents. And I agree largely. I do think I've seen some trending cards that are really bad. But yeah, timing being interesting is kind of cool. Also, the fact that this is an event means that it interacts differently with like certain things that install cards. And yeah, it's strange. This plus Conduit plus a new BAM is kind of nice. Oh yeah, with Go. Man, why does it say Dunwich? That's fun. We've seen this before. Headstrong, separate core damage cannot be prevented. Run HQ or R&D. If successful, access 1 additional card for each point of core damage you have max 4. ESSA would love this. Any core damage ID would love this. I think when we saw this before, it was like max 5 or max 6. It was even stronger than this, and it was just kind of like you just rush core damage and smash these as fast as possible. The thing is, if someone is like, the more that we've seen in this game of like big multi-axis cards, more often than not they shuffle the deck, because that's the issue. If you see the top 5 cards of R&D and you don't win, the corp's not winning. What is core damage? Rob, how's it going? Core damage is what was usually referred to back in the day as brain damage. It's been renamed by the Null Signal folks. They no longer use brain damage on their cards, and core damage is the exact same thing. Thematically, trending feels more like the idea of currents IMO. Yes. Yeah. The words itself, trending, feels like a current. I think that works together. This trending doesn't make a lot of sense. Mechanically, maybe. I don't know. Yeah. Max 4 is additional cards, right? So you can access all of HQ? Yep. Yeah, it's additional cards. So yeah, if you have enough core damage, and this always gives you a core damage, you just sweep HQ. This seems really, really quite powerful. You can also write as an additional cost to play this suffer core damage, but then I guess you can play cards with, yeah, no, that's fine. But the technically running hot has different text here. I think this is really, really strong. And I don't like cards like this that are very direct payoffs that are not interesting, because you just can't play around it. An ESSA deck will just rush core damage and just headstrong. Now, the only interesting thing about this is it's hard to keep the headstrongs in hand when you are taking core damage, because of course you can trash them. But yeah, I don't love those rush to just smash. I think all or nothing core damage is not interesting. Yeah, I kind of feel that. And I think when I played around this, I'm like, okay, so you have 4 core damage and it's not a problem right now. Admittedly, the more you play headstrong, the more it harms you. And I think that actually is interesting, where like it's hard to play the 3rd headstrong. I think that's kind of cool. But yeah, I don't know. It's a bit direct. Instant karma. It says reject though too. That's a bit on the nose. Trash the top card of your stack and R&D. That's in the part of the event. It's technically not the cost. Martyr is a ability when this card is trashed by taking damage, activate this ability. So by taking damage is more nuanced than Steel Skin Scarring. So you have to take damage, but you can self-inflict the damage if you can. So why would you play this? To trash the top card of your stack in R&D? That doesn't seem immediately good, but there are board states where you'd want to do that. Oh, and R&D. Oh, stack and R&D. Okay. So you're trading card for card. Generally, that's better for the runner than the corp, especially for Anarch. If this gets trashed, though, by taking damage, trash cards from the top of R&D equal to the amount of damage suffered when this card was trashed by a corp effect. Otherwise, trash the top card of R&D. That's pretty spiteful. I feel like this is the sort of card that would be not fun to play about if they made it 6 of per deck, and I think people would love to do it. I think this probably works with Allegra pretty well. Or is Allegra not? It's from your grip, I think. The Martyr on this is like niche. I don't know if that's going to fire a lot. It's weird. It's like, how consistently can you fire this? But the problem is that this is by a corp effect. So there's like so many matchups where the martyr on this is going to be dead. So it has to be 100% you're playing this because of the top text. Trash the top card of your stack and R&D for a single click. It's probably not worth it. But it's not the worst. It's weird how I'm not 100% sure on this thing. I don't think it's the worst. I think the martyr text is like, because this is by a corp effect, you cannot count on that. It still trashes one card if you cause damage to yourself. Oh, yeah, you're right. If you suffer it, they just trash the card of R&D. Thank you. Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Those are two separate sentences. So if this is just trashed from the... Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, okay. Maybe. 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 Interesting. Mutual aid. Your deck must contain 2 copies of this card, so duality is a subtype. Draw 2 cards for 0. When your turn ends, if this is the only card in your grip, reveal it to draw 2 cards. How to get this to be the only card in your hand seems impossible. I don't know if this is weird or not, but like the Katara cycle, I'm assuming, I don't know where these folks are from, but like these are, I don't think it's the first people we've seen that are not white folks. Is that the case or not? No, not exactly. But like when it comes to mutual aid and just depictions of, you know, non-white people, I don't know, gets kind of weird to me. I feel like the Katara cycle is really good for the like sort of Afrofuturism angle. Not that these are specifically, I know where these people are from, but you know what I mean, maybe. How would you ever fire this? If you just click this to draw 2 cards, that's basically like people are playing pretty heavily Stone Chip or Log Vault, but the difference there is that you can pre-install it and use it later. And that's, you know, that's good. That makes it a lot more playable. You can dump it from your hand and draw it, let alone it becomes a way to get around combo pieces. I know exactly what you mean. Okay, thank you. It's hard to express that without sounding, I'm not very comfortable. When your turn ends, it's the only card in your grip, reveal it to draw 2 cards. So the cool thing is you reveal it, you don't actually have to use it. So this actually would kind of be a nice card in like a Nat deck that's playing low hand size. Because you can also trigger the ordering here. Sort of. You could be on 0 cards, then you could draw 1 with safety first, then reveal this, draw 2, if I'm not mistaken. That's kind of cool. It's like an Earthrise Hotel. This card's amazing. I just don't know how you get this to be the only card in your grip. Is it that hard to fire? It seems really strong. How do you fire this? Like, you're saying that you play a deck that every turn you jam 4 cards out of your hand? Oh, Patchwork, yeah. You know what? There was an ID that this makes a lot of sense in. What were we looking at? Yeah, this thing. Katya, right? Where you only play 10 events. So then if you can jam all the events at a turn and then you get free 2 card draw a turn with this thing. Yeah, that's kind of cool. That is actually kind of cool. That'd be a fun deck to play more than anything. It's like Lat, but it's not about matching hand sizes, it's emptying your hand. I think it's amazing. Play all your cards, leave this alone. Next turn, play the 2 cards you drew with it, do it again. Yeah, that's kind of fun, isn't it? I think this would be fun. Yeah, 2 turns a card is super powerful. 2 cards a turn is super powerful. I believe that. I was thinking this is going to be very difficult because I was thinking like a guinea pig deck where like you can't really play this, but I think you're right. You could just play it in more of a good stuff deck. And I think that's also the sort of deck that likes playing Career Fair or like Eventuality, that likes these cards that can get extra cards out of their hand. That being said, if you only have 3 cards in hand, you only need to play 2 of them. That's actually much easier. But maybe you can also play Earthrise. Yeah, that's neat. That's neat. That's kind of neat. Pleasure and Pain. Prep. As an additional cost to play this event, force the corp to fire subroutine. What time is it? 11:46. Wait, how many more cards do we have? We can do it. Oh my, no, we cannot do it. What are you kidding me? Okay, we'll do all of the events. Didn't know that kept going. Pleasure and Pain. Prep. As an additional cost to play this event, force the corp to fire subroutine that does not end the run on a res piece of ice. I do not know if you can fire subroutines outside of runs. During this turn, after you take damage or trash cards from your grip, draw the same number of cards. This seems so situational. Obviously, this works with the runner that wants to fire subroutines to get 2 recurring credits, and you can get ways to make this fire. But you have to hit a subroutine. There has to be res ice, and then you have to take damage or trash cards from your grip, including damage from the fired subroutine. If you're trashing cards from your grip and trashing like with 0, is this good enough? Yeah, the corp chooses a subroutine. No, you choose a subroutine. Wait, you choose a subroutine? Unclear. I was thinking you wouldn't get far when you spent more than a minute on each card. Yeah, I know, but like I didn't know. I thought it didn't go that. I thought there wasn't that many cards. Yeah. And you're right. With this, you can take infinite damage. Too much situational jank? I don't know exactly. Like, it might not be. I think there are cards in this that can actually make a consistent engine that can, like, potentially one turn kill. Kind of like the old, what's it called? Salvage Vantage's Armory. It should be the corp chooses the sub. You think it's trash? I don't even know if that's the case. Like, what's the worst that the corp is going to choose? Give a tag? Like, damage is not that powerful considering the effect of this. And then what other subroutines exist on ice? Tag? Gain 1 credit? Yeah, I don't know. This would look like it would work better as a resource you can trash after subroutine fires. Yeah. Anansi filter R&D? Oh, yeah, well, yeah, don't do that. I wouldn't do that one. But yeah, I think against non-Jateki, like, this is fine. On cell would be bad. Fairchild 3 is kind of bad. Yeah, I feel like this is a combo piece. I don't know if you can play this. I think, though, the fact that if you trash a card from your grip, draw a card, and it's not first time, it's whenever, that could potentially be busted, right? Like, you can do some pretty wild stuff. We already saw Zero just, like, draw 2 when you click for it. Yeah. Enigma to steal a click? Yeah, it depends who chooses. There are some bad subroutines. Provocate. Event. Install a card from your grip, lowering its cost by 4. Trash your grip. Unfortunately, trash your grip means this does not work with mutual aid. Whatever did I do to you? But this is basically like career fair, but you have to trash your grip. The payoff to this card versus the payoff to guinea pig or the payoff to just playing like career fair or eventuality doesn't seem very strong. Like, guinea pig is a lot of money. It's 6 clicks, 6 credits if I'm not mistaken. You play as the Patrick to discount by 6. If you have a deck that like constantly wants to empty hand, like you probably play this. It's install a card though. It's not play a card. So you can install anything though. It's hardware, resource, whatever you want. The other discounters are type locked, yes, and influence locked. So this is like universal. It's kind of like in some ways like the credit kiting, right? Trash your grip is expensive. As it's worded, I'd say corp chooses. This seems busted. Why do I not like this that much? Why is people see 1 more credit on this thing and they think it's really good? Like, it's fine. Busted. Maybe within Trash-or-Busto. It's probably about the same power level of Guinea Pig. Guinea Pig doesn't see a lot of play. I think Guinea Pig's a bit better. Oh, I didn't look at the deck. Sorry, Dijane. Guinea 6 credits, right? Why wouldn't this be play? I want to propagate Guinea Pig. Yeah, Guinea Pig is 10 on 4. So this is 4 and an install. So that's about 6 credits. So it's very, very similar, but you can install any card and that's important. Like liberated accounts for 2 is nice. Not having a grip though is difficult. So you need like ways, and this works with the trash stuff. Yeah, okay. Rage, red diesel, draw 4 cards when this turn ends, trash 2 cards from your grip. If you care about trashing, this obviously gets easier to swallow. When your turn ends, trash 2 cards. So as long as you're, oh, this is, it's a versatility of the credits, but trashing the grip is tough. Yeah, Anarch too, like your breakers, you don't want to install them, right? This allows you to save one of the cards in your grip. Yeah, you trash your grip, but then you keep your best one. Guinea Pig is rip all of them. You're right. That's true. So, but you have to install. Yeah, okay. Yeah, there's a lot of draw in this set because I think there's a lot of like self damage that you need to draw. Busted. What? Okay. Draw 4. When this turn ends, trash 2 cards from your grip. So it's even if you're over hand size, it doesn't matter. But I guess when your turn ends, you can trash over hand size first, and then you can go down. So as long as you draw and you end with 7 cards in hand, this card has like no downside whatsoever. For that reason, I think that's probably just straight busted. When this turn ends, or does turn ends happen after discard? I think discard happens before turn ends, right? Because turn ends is lat. Ideally, I have like 0 cards at the end of turn, which is playing all the discounting effects. This fires after discard down to hand size, so you always are going to trash 2 from this. I think I'm wrong. I think this just depends on how many trash stuff you have. With Anarch Breakers, like that's not too bad. Click to draw 4. Like, I don't know. This seems so comparable to me to moshing, and moshing gives you credits. Turn end is after discard. Yeah, okay. That tracks. That's exactly. How's it going, James? That's exactly like lat. Play stuff with Patchwork and basically never pay credits to play cards. I guess so. I don't think I'm as hot as these. Stand up, trash your grip, draw 5 cards. Okay, look. These are all bleeding together. This seems like the best one. But Rage is not that much worse. This seems like the best one. I could get behind this in just about any deck. Just get a new hand for 2 credits. Yeah, it's a deal. This one's the best one. The set was made specifically for me. Yeah, this is just get a new hand for 5 credits. You play that for 2 credits. You play that. Like some people played Levy AR Live Axis just to get a new hand. This is a 3x in every Anarch deck. Yeah. Yeah, if you have no cards in hand, yeah, that's the best card around the game. That's interesting though. Suggestion. The corp may remove up to 2 cards in your heap from the game. 1 credit for this event. Play or install a card from your heap, paying its all costs. Remove this card from the game instead of trashing it. Okay. So for this to be good, you need to have 3 good targets in your heap. The corp can remove 2 from your heap from the game, so they're going to take your 2 best options, and your 3rd best option you can play or install, paying all costs. Then you remove this from the game instead of trashing it. So you're basically setting up something like a Steve Cambridge, where you can set up a scenario that's a no-win scenario, right? Like you have 3 of the same busted card, and you're going to play one of them for 1 credit and 1 click, not even for click extra, for 1 credit extra. Is that good? Kind of. It's probably not bad. It's like, it feels to me like if you're at that point at the end of the game and you have something super important, you probably play labor rights, but this gives you the ability to do it on tempo and a bit more consistently. That's what the thing. It's like Steve Cambridge, but the value of Steve Cambridge is it triggers way more than once. Stand up seems great to make sure no one ever plays punitive again. Wait, why? No, you still play punitive. This punitive still kills, right? You just double punitive them. There's always situations where non-type recursion breaks. The thing is, like, this is expensive non-type recursion. I don't think this seems unhealthy because there's like Steve Cambridge-esque like release valves on it. This makes heat breakers very hard to use, or you find your breaker list. That's actually very true, is that it's hard to play this without pre-installing your heat breakers. But this is the sort of card that you probably don't play more than 1 of in your deck. If you're playing 3 of this in your deck, I feel like there's something poisonous, but it's hard to like target recursion with this. But you're right, they can remove your 2 paper clips. I'm still in love with the art of the new punitive. It's so colorful. Oh, the one with the glasses, like the system update one. I don't know. I feel like she's pointing the gun at him, and that can't be like good gun safety. Like, you should not just be chilling out there. The mugs would be spilling all over. This is from Shadowrun, but like, you should not be holding your finger on the trigger with your friend drinking out of your skull mug in the stairwell. Like, you're gonna shoot your friend in the leg. What's going on here? Probably similar application to same old thing. Yeah, I think modernly same old thing probably wouldn't see play. But that's because there's no events that I think are that busted. Anarchs are not. Care not for trigger discipline. Anarch's gonna Anarch. Yeah, I don't know. This is interesting. This is like a recursion card that doesn't seem awful. It does challenge other parts of the Anarch pie, and I think that's kind of cool. The same boat. Okay, priority run sabotage. She's melting from paint. Play only as your first click, run HQ. If successful, both players ante 5 cards from their HQ/grip. I need some water. Reveal the antes and trash up to X random unrevealed cards from the other player's HQ grip. X is the player's ante. Okay, wait. What? Run HQ. If successful, both players ante 5 cards from their HQ grip. So that's, we've seen this before. Ante, you basically pick cards and you reveal them simultaneously. You reveal the antes. So I show 3 cards, my opponent shows 2 cards, and trash up to X random unrevealed cards from the other player's HQ grip. Ante 5 means nothing trashed. I think you have to trash your antes though. I think the cards that you ante are spent. Hold on, we'll get it. Run HQ, easy. If successful, both players ante 5. Nothing happens. I think antes inherently after you ante are trashed. It doesn't care about the difference. Yeah, if successful, both players ante 5 cards from their grip. Okay, say I ante 5 cards, okay? That's all I'm gonna say. Reveal the antes and trash up to X random cards, so 5 random cards from the other player's HQ grip. So basically, I can throw out my full hand so that they have to trash out every card in their hand. So while I think this seems nuanced, I think that's either bust or like it's 0 or 5. And if you're playing this, why would you ever say 0? What is going on here? Run HQ. If successful, both players ante 5 cards from their HQ grip. Reveal the antes. So I reveal 5. The corporation reveals 2. Okay, so 2 is corp, 5 is us. Reveal the antes and trash up the X cards from the other player. So I revealed 5, so I have to trash 5 from the other player, and then they trash 2 from me. But I have no cards because I've anteed my whole deck, and they've anteed 2. They got trashed anyways. I don't think this does anything. It just says run HQ, rip your hand, they rip their hand. Yeah, it says random unrevealed. But I'm assuming the anti-mechanic. Okay, so what do we think anti means? Because I think that's the issue here. Does anti mean that you pick the cards and then after this ability, the cards are destroyed? Or do you get to return the cards back to hand? And you reveal them as the cost? There's no anti reference anywhere. There might be in some document. I don't have it. Well, it might be in here, but I'm not getting it. X the ante in secret, choose at the given number. No, yeah, I know what ante is like you choose the secret cards, but what happens to them after the ante? Do they just return to your hand? Because Sangren played an ante card that forced him to trash cards, but I'm not sure if that was attached to the ante or not. If ante doesn't trash, yeah, that's the issue. It's like if ante doesn't trash, you just always do your whole hand. You lose information, but like, okay. But the corporation should then just ante their whole hand too. I feel like if there's a reminder text for the mechanic, it should explain the whole mechanic. Yeah, I think so. If you go unrevealed, you just lose the cards because they are unrevealed. Well, no, you only lose the cards if your opponent antes anything, right? Like if the corporate antes 0, you don't lose anything, right? So like if the runner only antes 1, the corporation only loses 1 unrevealed card. Seems like ante just sets a number, then why wouldn't you ante 5 every time? Because reveal the antes makes me think that you reveal the cards. So like you lose information, right? It's like reveal HQ. You don't access them, but now I know it's an HQ. So I don't know what this is. If you trash the antes, it's 5 or 0. You just always go 5. You just trash your hand for the corpse hand. That's a winning trade for runners. Be damned combo decks. Otherwise, I don't understand. Feels more like a crim card. It says trash on it, so sort of. This is weird. I don't think we fully understand what anti means, but yeah, we saw an anti card though. The trash cards. Maybe I'm getting burned up. Okay, tribal tattoo. We only have a couple more. Just always pick 5 no matter how anti works. I think you always pick 5. Yeah, I don't understand the nuance. Like I think this is meant to play out like a tense game, you know, kind of like Trace or kind of like a side game to some extent, where like, oh, I can afford to reveal these, and I want to protect these, so I'm going to do something. But it just seems like if they anti 5, you lose everything always. It works better as an anti 3 instead of an anti 5. You don't lose the cards. It would make more sense if it checked the difference between the antes and discard the difference. Right, if I anteed 4 and you anteed 2, then I'd have to discard 2. But it's from my unrevealed cards, of which I only have 1. So I don't see why I wouldn't ante 5, because then I have no unrevealed cards, so I can't lose. Like, that's the issue. If I ante my whole hand, then I have no unrevealed cards. This has no downsides to me, unless the downside is the ante, which is what I'm guessing, right? Yeah, I don't know. Choose a subtype, gain 1 credit for each installed runner card with the matching subtype. Tribal tattoo. Funny name. With the matching subtype? Well, this seems busted. Seems like you're anti this idea, Stephen. I'm interested. Okay. Choose a subtype, gain a credit for each installed runner card with the matching subtype. I do not know what subtypes are problematic for this, but this sort of card builds, like the closest we've seen to this, if I'm not mistaken, is calling in favors. I have to spell it American. Icebreaker is not a subtype. Icebreaker is a subtype. Icebreaker is a subtype, but that generally doesn't get abused. So calling in favors was actually like a really, really good card, but it just like all the decks were kind of the same. You just jammed all the connections into a deck and you needed the draw engine. So like it was whatever, it was fun, sort of. So you could choose connection, and this would be strictly a worse version of that. However, you could also name subtypes like companion, so you could get like 4 or 5 off of this, and that's okay. But like a card like this that's dead in your opening hand, the payoff actually has to be really quite good. Like I think you need to hit 7, right? Like this needs to be a click for 5 credits, maybe a click for 4 credits, but you need 6 or 7. Virtual would make sense. We saw the ID that does with this virtual pretty well. But I think you'd have to do a lot. Maybe stealth works. I think you generally all your breakers are stealth and you have 2 or 3 other stealth pieces, so that probably is fine. I'm interested to know whether this is a flexible card or whether this is just going to be like a boring card. Virus, yeah, virus can work actually really well. I honestly don't know if like things like cookbook are virus subtyped. I don't think they are. I don't think the virus support cards are virus subtyped, but the viruses are, that's for sure. Chip is probably bad. Who is Assault? Woe is Assault? Priority run sabotage, play on your first click, make a run, trash the first X cards accessed during this run. X is the number of unique connections you have installed. Cool, okay. Well, so you need a lot of connections. If you have a single connection, this becomes stim hack to trash assets for 2 priority. Is that reasonable? I think that's kind of reasonable. Now, if you have multiple connections, you need to access multiple cards. Who is a protocol to look up routing over an IP address? Thank you. That makes sense. Oh, it's all capitals. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Also, how's the launch been? So that seems okay. Now, if you have multiple, this is a run event, so you can't play this with like conduit. You actually have to have other multi-access. So you probably play this with like the twinning and then maxes out at 3 cards. Is that good? How many unique connections are you playing? The companions are unique connections. Are they? Are they? This almost feels like a bad demo run, but it's more flexible because you don't have to run centrals. No, it's companions, they're not connections. But you can run remote server. Like if you have a single connection, you can pay 2 and then like trash something that costs 4. That's not amazing. Like, right? Like this would have to be cheaper to be really good. Yeah, companions aren't connections. I don't know. I don't think this thing is the worst. It's not the worst asset hate card. If there's like 5 cost trash assets like pretty consistently, it's fine. And that's hardware. We'll just do 1 hardware. The safety goggles. I played this card and I should have played it faster. The first time each turn you would take core damage, prevent the damage, and suffer the same amount of net damage. That text is largely irrelevant. It's kind of interesting if you have these and you're doing core damage to yourself, because the amount of corp decks that are core damaging you are minimal, so you can't rely on that. So you have to have a deck that core damages yourself. Now, I'm not sure the text on ESSA, but I'm pretty sure if you cancel the core damage and make a net damage, that's not going to trigger this. Yeah, you suffer core damage, so you can't replace this. So that's not very good unless you have core damage cards that you care about. Now, this ability actually is something I should have cared about, and I think there's some Anarch decks that would do this. It's not amazing. Suffer 3 net damage to draw 4. That's basically like refresh your hand. Like, we thought that this thing was pretty sick. It's trash 2, draw 5. Trash your grip, play 2 to draw 5. This is 0, trash 3 cards, draw 4. Now, that's obviously different because you need to suffer the 3 net damage. You can't do it on an empty hand, but they're actually very comparable cards. And when you have heap breakers, or specifically in the set, we had breakers that would care about how many other breakers are in a heap, this is probably quite okay. I use these goggles for reference for my fan re-education card art. Get out. This isn't unique. No, it's not unique. So in theory, also, you can chain these together. And then if you have something like Salvage Vanadis Armory, you can very easily take 9 net damage in a single turn and live. Is that preventable? Yes, you can prevent this net damage because it's before the colon, so it's not part of the cost. It's part of the effect. So you prevent the net damage, you just draw 4 cards. I don't think there's a good way to prevent 3 net damage cheaply, but maybe. So you stack them and use that card that lets you do something for each damage. Yeah, exactly. I don't know which one that was. I think it was probably this. But this was during a run, so that doesn't work. Maybe there was another one, but I think the one we saw was during a run. That's neat. Presumably the 2 credits is to draw 5 is played as the last card in your hand. Yeah, presumably, and that makes it easier than safety goggles. But I think also there are some hands where you just dump this. You would just dump your hand to be able to draw 5 fresh hand cards when your hand is like breaker, extra, I don't know, 0 breaker or something like that. The one that lets you draw cards whenever you take damage. I forget what that one was, but we saw that one earlier. Yeah. You can use that quick hack during a run to prevent 2 of that. Oh yeah, you can do this during a run. You're right. So that actually works together. And then you could Distracted Mind to reveal this from your grip, pay 1 credit and lose a click during a run to prevent up to 2 net damage and then trash this card. So if you can get this from your deck, but even that's kind of hard. Wait, was that Chumbawamba flavor? One of them did. Was that Get Back Down, right? No. Yeah, we did see Chumbawamba flavor. I think you're right. We did. I just don't know which one. Yeah, this one's pretty Chumbawamba. First Responders. First Responders is only corpse damage, I think. Yeah, it's only from a corp ability, so it doesn't work. First responders would be busted if it worked on your stuff. Wait, this is a way to self-damage for 3 that can be pre-installed. It's just a combo piece, isn't it? Yes, I think this is very easily a combo piece for something potentially degenerate. I don't know what that is in the meta of this, but I think, yes, very, very easily you could look and be like, oh, this seems like it could be a problem. On its own, though, I don't think it's the worst. And I think the deck that I was playing was actually very happy to fire this consistently. Okay, it's past midnight. That's it. Now, I'm not going to confirm anything, but Null Signal Games, stay tuned to their stuff. They should be announcing a schedule pretty soon. What about the guns? I don't know. They should be announcing something pretty soon about spoilers. I'm going to be recording a spoilers video this week. Again, this stuff comes out in 2 weeks or so we should have a video up pretty soon. So, hey, stay tuned. If you want to get the spoiler video as soon as you can see it, go to youtube.com Métropole Grid, and then you hit that follow subscribe button, and then you hit the notify button, the bell, and then you'll get a push notification on your device when it's up. And then you can be like the first person there, and you can write first in the comments, and then I'll ban you for spam. But yeah, that should be soon. Again, it's the UK Nationals this weekend. If you want to watch some Netrunner play on the internet, good luck to everyone playing in the UK Nationals. You're probably asleep at this moment, but good luck out there. And I'm excited to watch as much of the stream as I can. First user was banned for this post. When I tuned in, I thought this was a spoiler set for a minute. Yeah, maybe it's a bit in bad taste to do this at this point, but I wanted to do this before priority. I wanted to do this before, because talking about these cards in the middle of spoiler season, let alone after spoiler season, that's going to be really confusing. Shouts out to MNeMiC. Yeah, huge shout out to MNeMiC. Like, we're going to be pretty critical about this stuff. We're going to say busto or trash. Obviously, those are the 2 extremes, so our language is pretty, it's not pretty nuanced. But this is so cool. Even if we can be critical and say this card's not good or this card's really good, like, that's not the point. It's the exercise itself. First comment is a boost to video engagement. It is. It's appreciated. I honestly don't mind if you rate first on the comments. Yeah, no, the huge shout outs to this. Again, you can find all these. The link will be in the YouTube description, and that's it. Enjoy your weekend, y'all. We'll be back in a bit. It'll be December, I reckon, by the time you see us again. Thanks for hanging out. Hopefully you're enjoying the VOD. If not, sorry. See you in a bit. Ciao.